The 24-hour race at Daytona International Speedway is the unofficial start to the motorsports year in the United States, where the best drivers from all around the world take part, in one of the more grueling 24-hour events the world has to offer. Tonight, the drivers of the Majors American Sportsman Series will take part in a 2.4-hour run through this event at the legendary Daytona International Speedway. Hello, everybody. My name is Frank Marchese. We thank you so very much for making us a part of your night here at the Daytona International Speedway. Alongside me tonight, my partner, Nate Siefker. Nate, we're looking at one heck of a night here. First time for the Major Series here on ESPN. We could not be more excited.
One of the most prestigious events in all of motor racing, and we're proud to be a part of this incredible partnership with the Major Series. And really tonight, the 2.4 hours at Daytona is one of the most epic events in all of iRacing. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, we are so ready and so excited for this race here tonight. But first, we'll get you some info on the racetrack here, Daytona International Speedway, opening back in 1959. This track here tonight that you're going to be seeing is a 12-turn version of the 2.5-mile oval that you see on a normal basis here. As we take a look now from high above on Google Earth, trying to find where in the world we are, there is the Daytona International Speedway just outside of Daytona Beach, Florida. And Nate, this is one of the more legendary locations that you could find a race at, and to be putting on a show like this, as they do every single January, this has a potential to be a fantastic night here.
Yeah, they used to race on the beaches just a couple miles east of here, but yeah, this is an incredible race to have. It's been a spectacle to Speedway ever since the 60s and the 70s, and it's continued all the way into the modern era of the sport. And it's one of the races that's considered the triple crown of endurance races. Everybody wants to win it, everyone wants to be a part of it, and it's on top of everyone's list to win at Daytona.
It absolutely is. 2 hours and 24 minutes is what we're going to have here today. You have one spare car tonight, so if you do make a mistake in the earlier portion of the race, you do get a little bit of a reprieve. There are going to be 3 classes. There's going to be the LMP2s are going to be the top class, the quote-unquote Daytona prototype class here for tonight's event. You also have the GTEs that are going to be running here tonight as well as the GT3s. And right now, you're looking at Gregory Hectus in one of the beautiful LMP2s that just came out with iRacing, not with this most recent update, but the last one.
Yeah, and that Dallara LMP2, a lot of adjustments in the week since these guys have been practicing. The iRacing released their patch in order for the 24 hours of Daytona for the official series that's coming up next weekend, and it's really kind of threw a curveball at some of these guys with some of their stuff. But I think for the most part, if you had a good setup, you should be just fine tonight. And I think people have learned to love the LMP2, especially in iRacing.
Yep, and also, so there's one of the LMP2s that is going to be taking a part in this race. Here is one of the GTEs that is going to be taking. This is Dan Garber in the Porsche 919. I'm sorry, the Porsche 911, GTE. And these cars here, very low center of gravity, mid-engine. These cars have a very good chance at being successful here, but can they match the horsepower of the Corvette, or possibly the nimbleness of one of the Ferraris?
Yeah, those 3 cars that you just said, the Ferrari, the Porsche, and the Chevy Corvette that just released with this latest build as well. Actually, 2 builds ago now. It's one of those 3 cars is going to be sure to win the race. And it's incredible how level they are, even with the different kind of delivery and how nimble they are, how close they are together still. So it'll be interesting to see throughout this race which manufacturer kind of separates itself from the rest.
This is Brett Trosen in the Corvette that came out in the same build as the new Dallara 217, which is the highest class here tonight. Let's talk about a car that came out here in the most recent update here on iRacing. This is Robert Gambill driving the number 48 Lamborghini Huracan GT3. Now there are two GT3 cars in this race here tonight. It's going to be the BMW GT3 and this Huracan GT3. I took the Huracan out here just on a couple of reconnaissance laps just to see how this track would handle with the Lamborghini. This Lamborghini, very hard to find fault with around here.
And the thing is that it's, like you said, it's the recent build. Both the BMW and the Lambo are. So really, these drivers, they don't know a whole lot about the cars. They haven't really got to really drive them in anger in multiple races. This is going to be one of the first major races that they're going to do in these cars. So tonight is essentially just a really big test session with these two cars because they don't have a whole lot of information on them.
And this is Gerard Gilbert here in the BMW, as Nate mentioned, one of the newer cars to come out here in this build. Now, right now you see on the timing and scoring pylon, the LMPs will be in the gold, the GTEs will be in blue, the GT3s will be in red. So we'll be watching those, all three of these classes go through the night here. But one of the major things that we are going to have to worry about here is the weather for this racetrack. It's not just the fact that it's not just going to be warm. It's not just going to have the sun on it. We are going to be going through a day-night transition, which means cooler ambient temperatures. We are simulating today. Green flags should drop at about a simulated time of 5:10 p.m. Eastern time. So there is going to be a lot of track evolution that these guys are going to have to deal with.
Yeah, sunset's about 5:50 sim time, so they're going to have about 40 minutes of the sun hitting the racetrack, and then it's going to transition into the dusk phase, and then we're going to have a good chunk of time underneath the lights with no sun on it, and combined, there's a 15-mile-an-hour wind currently coming from the east, so that's going to really affect some braking distances into some of the braking zones, and maybe the draft as well. So there's a lot of variables with the weather, like you just said. Not just the sun, but also the wind could play a major factor tonight.
It certainly could. And for those of you who do not watch multi-class racing, you can see by the times there is about a 10-second difference between the fastest LMP2 and the fastest GT3. So these guys trying, one, to find a clear place to make a pass if you're in one of the faster cars, as we watch Sean Duhamel come through here in the 617. Finding a place for these guys to pass is going to be very reliant on where you catch them. Also, trying to move over and find a place to be passed that's not going to cost you or them too much time.
Yeah, absolutely. The LMP2 cars, they're going to have about 12 laps where it's just themselves. They're not racing anybody in the class, and then they're going to hit the back of the GT3 traffic and GTEs for the rest of the race. So the emphasis is this is a 2.4-hour race. It's a long race, but you have to make use of your time from start to finish. So the first 20 minutes of this race could very well be the most important 20 minutes of this race, just because of how critical it is to get through traffic.
It certainly is going to be one heck of an entertaining night. This is the American Sportsman region. Last year in 2020, these guys did put on one heck of a show. And last year's champion, Mark Stevenson, 9 wins this past season. I believe that moved him up into the Pro Series. Looking to find now a new champion. Daniel B. Johnson finished 222 points off of the championship lead, as you see the top 10 from last week. Now, there are 2 splits for the American Sportsman Series. Right now, you are watching split number 1 for the Sportsman Series. So there will be guys that are in here that maybe you do not qualify that well over the course of the week that get bumped down into split 2. But for right now, these guys are the fastest of the fast here at Daytona. And this, it looks like an easy place to get around. There are a lot of hairpins. The LMP2s don't necessarily take hairpins all that well. You really have to let off and let these LMP2s roll. And then not to mention that incredibly hard braking zone going down into turn number 1.
I mean, yeah, when you look at it from the surface, yeah, it looks like almost an oval with just a couple turns on the inside, but it's much harder than that. You have that entire infill section where you're just trying to keep the tires cool as possible. You have the bus stop chicane as well, which is a very tricky sequence of corners in itself. And just as you said, the braking zone for turn 1, you're turning all the time, you're transitioning on the banking. It's a very difficult braking zone to get turn 1 even right half the time. So it'll be interesting to see when we mix it in with the classes how LMP2 drivers do approaching a GT3 or a GTE car into turn 1. It'll be interesting to see how the LMP2 traffic handles with all the cars in these different braking zones.
Yeah, and with this being the American region, a lot of these drivers are going to be either from the United States or Canada. We do have one driver who is not from either the United States or Canada. There he is on pit road right there. Gustavo Cianfarini, one of the only Brazilian name in this race. So he's got his work cut out for him as we had about just a minute left before we head into qualifying. He will be in one of the BMWs in the GT3 class, so we will be watching him a decent amount. And as we had mentioned, the Porsches earlier on, Ethan Oswoski, or Osowski, I do apologize. We will learn these names as the season goes on. But right now, here he is in the Porsche, the fastest overall of the GTE class, which I for my money, I think this is where a bulk of the competition is going to be tonight.
I think the GTE, I mean, I've just watched a little bit of the practice session so far. I'd say the GTE is by far the closest of the 3 classes. And like I said, we have different manufacturers in that class, not just 2 like the GT3s. We have multiple. It'll be interesting to see as the race progresses, even with how tight it is, which advantages come out with the cars. The Corvette has such a great powered performance as well. The Porsche does really well with the nimbleness.
Yeah, it certainly will. As we're about to enter this 10-minute qualifying session here. Now, this I'm expecting will be just the same as you would see during any given race. As you take a look at Richard McClure coming out in one of the Corvettes. That was the word I was looking for. As he takes to the International Horseshoe, the first driver on track here for this qualifying session. You see down there at the bottom, we have the 4 closest drivers to pit lane, to the start-finish line on their qualifying times. You'll see once they actually do start to set representative times, you will see 3 different color bars. You will either see a yellow bar, a green bar, or a purple bar. The purple bar is session best. The green bar is personal best, and the yellow bar is slower than their personal best. So nobody has started their times yet. The first person, the closest person, I should say, to setting that time is Joseph Holman here in the 999 LMP2. Now, these LMP2s could get about 3, possibly 4 laps here in this qualifying session, while these slower GTEs and GT3s could possibly only get maybe 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And the nice thing, too, is as you see Joseph, if you're still on him, he ran the very top lane out of 4, trying to get the maximum NASCAR 4 as he tried to get the maximum run to the line. But you got to make sure your tire pressures and tire temps are in check, especially for this dive into turn 1.
And that's a big, heavy braking zone. You see a lockup, and he goes through. That will certainly hurt his time there as we take a look, looking through as Greg McEnany in one of the Lamborghini Huracans starts his first flying lap. Beautiful looking machine in that Forge Lamborghini Huracan. And I'm expecting, from what I've seen and from what I've felt, I'm expecting this car to be incredibly stable through a vast majority of this track. I'm not expecting too much drama out of the Lamborghini.
I don't think we'll see a whole lot of drama out of the GT3 class, period. They have ABS they can run. They have traction control, of course, that they can run. On paper, it's the most secure car of the classes. So, yeah, I think the Lambos and the BMWs are going to be very secure throughout the run. And they're probably going to be the easiest cars to qualify as well.
As Joseph Homan here, he comes through the chicane, the bus stop chicane on the back straightaway, now heading through NASCAR 3 and 4. Now, for the most part, you won't see the LMP2s on the bottom here. Usually in multi-class racing, for oval scenarios such as this, the code of conduct would be to give the outside line to these faster cars. So that's where you will see these guys for a vast majority of the run. And because Holman did not went off track there at the beginning of his lap, that he did not get a time in. So the first representative time here goes to the man you see on screen right now. That is Andy Spicer, and he is quickly knocked off by Joey Haynes. As you see here, he comes in that 338 Dallara. Sean Duhamel coming up in second spot right now. Richard McClure, here he is, currently sitting P1, actually just gets taken over by Michael Lane in the Ferrari, who has a big slide going through turn one. And that's something you're going to see all night long as these guys as the tires start to heat up. Brakes are going to start to heat up as well. These cars are going to slide a little bit more going into turn one. You think you could be a little bit braver, and sometimes that back end will suck right around on you.
Spencer Todd just took the number one spot in GTE, but I wanted to say for a second there, first through fourth was only separated by 0.05 of a second. That just shows how close that GTE class that we talked about was going to be. So I'm expecting with more of these laps these guys are going to run, that this GTE class is just going to continue to condense and combine into each other.
Gregory Hectus just took the fastest lap in the LMP2s. He runs a little bit wide there, sets a 1:34.3. Todd at a 1:41.1. Current pole sitter for the GTE class, Ozzie Milwane. Here he is in the Lamborghini Huracan. This is the fastest man right now in the GT3 class, as he looks, again, just looks very solid as you would expect down there on the inside. We'll see what he can do here on this run as he crosses the line. He will not better his time and will lose the pole for the GT3 class to Gustavo Cianfarini, who's having a little bit of connection issues. As we now head over to Jeff Cardamone, currently sitting second right now in the LMP2 class. A 1:34.631 is his best time. Joey Haynes has set the personal best first sector, the overall best first sector, in the 3:38. As here comes Haynes down the back straightaway. Gregory Hectus has the fastest second sector overall. As Hectus comes across the line, probably a timing lap there, just trying to time to where he can get an extra lap if he so needs it, as Joey Haynes comes through NASCAR 4 here. Michael Broomhead currently sitting above him. Can he improve his time? He will not improve his time. So Joey Haynes currently sitting in that 4th position. Here's Michael Broomhead currently sitting 3rd in the LMP2 class. Spencer Todd on pole right now in the GTE class with Richard McClure in the Ferrari behind him. Sorry, McClure is in the Corvette. Todd is in the Ferrari. As we now switch to Brian Halleck for GT3.
And this is the point of qualifying here where you're going to see the time start to tumble because everyone's tires are finally up to temperature. It takes a while to get temperature in these tires. So I'd imagine we're going to start to see some really competitive lap times here in the next little 2 minutes here.
Yeah, and you could see Brian Halleck. You saw him weaving through NASCAR 4 and onto the front straightaway, trying to get as much heat into those tires as he possibly could. And something happened in turn 1 that he was not a fan of, so he is going to regroup. Here comes, this is Rob DeLoach, currently sitting 4th place in the GTE class. Another member of Forge Racing, and that Corvette really just sounds beautiful around here. And this is one of those tracks where the Corvette can really show its brute strength and power as we have a minute and a half left in qualifying.
I don't know, but it sounds like he's just banging it off the rev limiter on my screen for some reason.
It does have that, as you can see the red dots there on the. Well, yeah, he really has that thing pegged, doesn't he?
I don't even know that you could get to 9,000 RPM. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he certainly found a way there.
I learned something new today.
I think we all just did. Here's Spencer Todd in the Ferrari 488. And just looking very solid through that bus stop. As we will look to see if he can extend his pole time. Is up by about 0.3, a little bit more than 0.3. Well, now that just got cut down as Oswowski brings his time down, almost beats his session best, but Todd is going to have another run here. Only LMP2 car on track right now is this man, John Navarra, who jumps himself up into P7, and he will call it a run. As Todd is on a time, and that will do it for this qualifying session. As we will take a look now through the grid for the LMP class. This will be Gregory Hectus taking pole for Canada. Jeff Cardamone will complete the first row with him. Michael Broomhead in second. Joey Haynes in the rounding out the second row. Joseph Homan and Sean Duhamel in row 3. John Navarra, Andy Spicer in row 4. Row 5 will be Robert Covey and Jason McSparron rounding out row 5. Casey Sautich, or Saucht, I believe. Again, I do apologize for the names. With Robert Courtney in row 6. Starting for the GTE class will be Spencer Todd. He will take pole for the GTE class. Ethan Osowski will complete row 1. Maurice Gamillion and Richard McClure. My goodness, I do apologize, folks. In row 2, Michael Lane and Rob DeLoach in row 3. Dan Garber and Justin Garrick in row 4. Row 5 will be Chris Branson and Chris Sherburne. Row 7 will go to Matt Gelder and Brett Trosen. That will round out the GTE field. The GT3 field will be Brian Halleck, Nathan Medina, Ozzy in row 1, Ozzy Milwane and Gustavo Cianfarini in row 2, Mark Herzog and Robert Gamble in row 3. Row 4, we'll see David Gargo Jr. and Vince Harley. Row 5, we'll see Stephen Paulison and Gerard Gilbert. And row 6, we'll see Jason Guarara and Greg McElhaney. So now that I actually was able to get that out, Nate, this is going to be an incredibly fun night of racing. This is what we expect. This is what we hope, as I think we have a little bit of an issue towards the back here. Oh, no, we're all good. This is what we are expecting. This is what we are hoping for, a great race here tonight to begin the Majors American Sportsman Series, and Gregory Hectus will lead them down. Nate?
Yes, sir.
Take it away for the opening of the Majors Series.
The 2.4 hours of Daytona is green, and Gregory Hectus leads them away as he begins the 2.4 hours of Daytona, and we're looking for a clean run to turn 1. It looks like at the moment they're going to be clean. No major issues in the LMP2 class.
Yep, so that is the LMP2 class start. We'll try to go back. Here is the start for the GTEs. Looking for a clean start going through turn 1. You get it there. A close battle up here between Ozowski and Todd, and it will be the Porsche that gets the run. Here is the GTE, the GT3 class getting through, and Brian Halleck in the BMW has actually gotten away a little bit from Nathan Medina at the start in the Lamborghini Huracan. But as we go back up to the front, it'll be Gregory Hectus who has opened up a 6/10 of a second lead, now almost 7/10 of a second lead over Jeff Cardamone here in the 314. And there is a big gap even behind them, as Sean Duhamel right now has about 2 seconds up to Haynes.
Yeah, there had to be something happen in that class in order for almost a 2-second gap to open up there to Sean. So it'll be interesting to see. Sean's got to catch up to that pack in order to reap the main benefits from Joey. But if you're in this LMP2 class, if you're Joey, Michael, or Jeff, you can just coast and ride and save fuel to hit your fuel number.
Here is John Navarra on track right now. Now, Navarra started a little bit higher up than he is now, as we'll take a look and see what happened here to Navarra, at least try to see what happened here to Navarra. Coming back onto the NASCAR circuit, and for what it looks like just too much gas too early, and that is incredibly easy to do, especially around turn number 6, as he just did there.
Yeah, that's a common theme where you're going to find people just making those slight mistakes throughout the race, and it's main thing in these 2.4 hours is just to minimize those mistakes. Try not to have a big one so you don't have to use your spare car, but you can have 1 or 2 minor mistakes. There's a big crash in the LMP2 in the GTEs,
and that would be where? Let's try to
Michael Lane.
Try to find it. Yep, here is Michael Lane, and oh my goodness, that Ferrari is absolutely crunched at both the front and back end, as he had a major issue. And I believe he has just decided to tow it back. He has. And now I believe there's, and now this is with the class leader here. We will get you a replay of what happened there in just a moment here. Just trying to work something out here. I do apologize. As, boy, it is really kicked off here early here at Daytona, at least in the GTE class. And we will now take you to see here what happened with Michael Lane, see if we can find what had happened. Oh, wow. We came in a little late on that, unfortunately. Let's take it back again. Oh, just spins coming out of the International Horseshoe, and then just right in front of the field, had nowhere to go. And that is not how you want to start this race. You're just 4 minutes into a 2 hour and 25-minute event, and already you're pulling out the spare car.
Yeah, that's definitely not what you want on the itinerary for your race. I mean, you, like I just mentioned before that, you want to minimize those mistakes, and that's just one of those mistakes that's going to compromise him throughout the rest of the race here.
It certainly is. He is going to need to drive a little bit more calmly and a little bit more carefully now. You're watching, this is the battle for the GTE class lead right now. This is Osowski, Todd, and McClure up here in the top three, battling for this. Now, these guys, from what we saw in the practice session, these guys are going to be running rather close to each other all race long. They already have about a 7-second gap back to their closest rival. As there goes Spencer Todd. And boy, Todd had a big slide on there. Fortunate to keep it straight. Fortunate that McClure did not run into him. Not going to hurt him, but that will set him back.
That's going to peak his tire temperature, so he'll struggle here for about half a lap. And that was just being too committed too early to the corner. The rear just stepped out and said, I'm not going to grip here, and you're going to half spin here.
Yep, and we're going to go back and take a look at what happened with Spencer Todd. Here he comes down into the bus stop, and that just looked like he carried too much speed into the bus stop. And unfortunately, when you have to change direction to go from left to right to get through the bus stop, that just really sets you out.
Yeah, just a slight case of ambition over adhesion there, unfortunately, and it just caught him out. But it looks like he'll recover for the most part. It didn't seem like it's going to hurt him. That's one of those things that's over time you won't really see the effect of it. But look at this LMP2 battle here.
Yep, that was Joseph Homan there as we go up to the front of the field here for the overall race lead. Cardamone has taken the lead away from Gregory Hectus. Michael Broomhead is in this as well. You also have Joey Haynes just laying a little bit back, and now this is for the overall class lead here. And looking rather calm as now here comes Michael Broomhead trying to get a look in on Joey Hectus. I do apologize for the, that was a GT3, I believe, that went off. There he is. Right there ahead of these guys. And boy, it's been a hectic first 7 minutes of this thing.
Now they'll just calm down eventually, I hope. But I think, just give them about 10 more minutes here. They'll get calmed down. I think it'll just transition to a nice, smooth race once we kind of get spread out. But I'm not disappointed yet. Look at this racing at the front.
Yeah, and this is for the overall class lead here. As you're seeing the timing and scoring pylon might go a little hectic here. It's just depending upon internet connection issues. You might see that change a little bit. However, Osowski is the class leader for the GTEs. Nathan Medina, right now the class leader for the GT3s. As here is Jeff Cardamone. Now 36 drivers taking part in this race as Cardamone now running away as the battle for second rages on. It's Joey Hectus and Michael Broomhead. Hectus on the inside, Broomhead on the outside. And Hectus looks as though he will take advantage going into one. So Hectus has lost that race lead. Cardamone now starting to run away just a little bit, now trying to catch up to him. Well, he got a great run, it appeared, and a little bit of a lockup there from Cardamone going into the International Horseshoe. And that, we're talking earlier Nate, about tires, as there goes Michael Broomhead with that mistake from Hectus going into the International Horseshoe. So there is Michael Broomhead, your new second place runner. But talking about tires, we're expecting to do somewhere between 90 and 93 laps for these LMPs. This could be a race where only one tire stop is necessary.
Yeah, and you got to make sure that you are careful with your tires. You can't just be burning them off and just throwing them away. You might see some radical strategies where some people just try to stay on the tires all race long and try to save that time in the pits as well. So if you're guys like Joey Haynes, who's just kind of just riding around in the 4th position here in this LMP2 class, I'd be saving fuel and just massaging my tires at this point, trying to think of the long game. Because that's what all endurance racing is. It's just thinking about an hour ahead, 2 hours ahead. And the people that will do that best are the ones that usually come out on top.
But they are, as Ethan Oswowski still in the race lead for the GTE class. Going now to the GT3 class. This is Nathan Medina currently in front in that Lamborghini. He is Brian Halleck, who is the pole sitter for this class. Right behind him, and again, I do apologize for the confusion on the timing and scoring pylon. If somebody is actually out of the race, we will be sure to let you know. But for right now, just ignore it as our program here being a little chaotic here, as we've only got 36 drivers here, but these 3 classes really wreaking havoc with the system, unfortunately. And again, I do apologize if that is causing any confusion, as Nathan Medina, right behind him is the class pole sitter Brian Halleck. Mark Herzog behind him. Now, you see it in real life, in the actual Rolex 24, where the same make and model cars will tend to work with each other even if they aren't the same team. Would you take that basic play and basic theory into a race like this, or are you just all out for yourself?
I think you're kind of more all out for yourself. I mean, in real life, you have factory support. You're paying your manufacturer to run the car. They kind of control how much resources you get to. So that kind of makes an incentive to work with your manufacturer. You don't really have that here. But I guess in the back of your mind, you're thinking, okay, this guy's driving the exact same car that I am. I'd kind of want to work with him. So to a degree, I'd say yes. But at the same time, no.
So, I mean, that's something that could be fun as we watch throughout this race, if there is some sort of factory help here, as one of the, I believe that is Mark Herzog in the Sector 5, number 57 BMW, sitting in 3rd place right now. This is the top 4 for the GT3 class here. Lamborghini, Beamer, Lamborghini, as we head through this class. And I believe behind them is, yep, there he is, the class leader for the LMPs. We are 12 minutes into this, and he is already about to put the class leaders for the GT3s 1 lap down.
How many laps did I say? I can't remember. It was like 7 or 8.
I think you said 12 laps.
I think I'm right on the money, so that was pretty good.
I think you said 12 laps, but
close
it turned out to be 12 minutes for these guys, as Jeff Cardamone now, you see him right onto the back, and just the speed differential you could see between these guys. And just as we ride on board now, you can really tell just the speed differential between the classes, as Cardamone just goes flying around the outside, and also the amount of visibility and how confined you are in one of these Dallara 217s.
Yeah, it's not a very big space to look out the window here. Look at Hectus here. He's going to probably want to get around Medina as quickly as possible, but he's not making life the easiest for him. He's going to lose this pack if he doesn't get by him quickly.
Yep, and that's exactly what we were talking about a little bit earlier on, is it's not necessarily that you catch these guys, it's where you catch these guys. And unfortunately for Hectus, he just caught them at possibly the worst possible spot that you could have caught them, and that has cost him a good second and a half on that overall front pack, but it looks as though he's making it up quickly. He was the pole sitter, the overall pole sitter here. So a 1.5-second gap, while annoying, isn't necessarily insurmountable for someone like Hectus.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he'll eventually get that back because I've just noticed, looking at the lap times for the LMP2 leaders, they're about 3 seconds to 4 seconds off of their qualifying times, as Broomhead's making maybe a look. No, he's not. He's going to just sit there and ride. But yeah, they're a little bit off their times, and that shows that they're just conserving.
Yep, certainly. Only 14 minutes into this 2-hour and 25-minute event here, and Michael Broomhead, that's one of those things where you got to play the waiting game, as he's going to try to use that draft now to get around Cardamone on that outside. And you can really use that draft to try to slingshot around here. They're going to come across the line abreast here, but he's going to give him plenty of space going into turn one. Nothing you want to push here just 15 minutes into this event.
I'm watching Cardamone's hands put, and he is extremely active with the rear of this race car, almost to the point where I think he's just not even trying to conserve the tires at all. He's just throwing the rears out the window. So that'll be interesting to see if he's actually conserved those rears at all, to the point if when they pit, he takes tires and maybe Michael doesn't.
Yeah, now we are expecting at least one round of tire stops for all of these classes. The question is, what are they going to do on the second stop? If you look through, as boy, Cardamone took that one way wide for the overall class lead, a fuel run here, the LMP2s can go about 23 laps on a tank of fuel, and right now they're working on lap 10, as Cardamone now is going to have to get around some GT3 traffic. So they are almost halfway through a fuel run. The GTEs can go about 34 laps. The GT3s can go about 32 laps. So there is quite a difference as far as fuel and tire strategy. The one thing that remains a constant between these guys is at least one tire stop.
Yeah, you'll have to make a tire stop. And the nice thing too with these GTEs is that they can change the fuel maps. These in this LMP2 car, for some reason they don't have a map adjustment where you can change the fuel. So that'll be interesting to see who can actually use their right foot to save fuel in this LMP2 class.
Gregory Hectus.
Oh, Cardamone got a really big tank slapper.
Yep, and there he is right there, just losing the lead to Broomhead. We'll take a look here just a moment as to what happened, but Michael Broomhead, currently the overall leader here, as we head down. And wow, that was a big lockup, and that rear end came right around, as you said, Nate. That was a big moment, and almost, I mean, that could have been catastrophic for the driver of the 314.
Incredible save. That's just one millisecond away from rotating all the way around and spinning out and losing 10, 15 seconds. So good job by Jeff there to not lose any more than just the lead.
Lost the lead in about a 1.5 seconds worth of time. Currently 7/10 off of the race leader, Michael Broomhead. As we were mentioning there, Gregory Hectus has gotten around Joey Haynes for overall 4th position. Back to the battle in the GTE class. Ethan Oswowski has up and left the rest of the field here. Richard McClure, here he is, about to go into the International Horseshoe. That is a gap of about 5 seconds on the rest of the between first and second here in the GTE class. And there's another big gap of about 5 seconds back to this man here in the Ferrari, Spencer Todd. So there is a good amount of gap in the series that we thought was going to produce the best racing.
Yeah, and I think part of that's due to just the cars, how he kind of said they're going to develop throughout the run differently. And at this stage, the Porsche by far looks the best. How that'll continue throughout the race, we're not sure yet. But at the moment, I would say it's advantage Porsche into which car you want to be in.
Yeah, certainly does appear that way as you see two Porsches battling right here. Maurice Gamillion and Justin Garrick. Maurice up on the outside lane, Garrick on the inside. This is a battle for the 4th place in the GTE class, a battle for 16th position overall. And Gamillion will hold on to that spot here just for the moment, but this is where the battle really is in the GTE class. It is for that 5th spot, and you can see there is the 54 of Michael Broomhead now getting around to put these guys one lap down.
And so far, the LMP2 class has had it pretty easy with clearing traffic, so kudos to them. They just need to keep doing that, being efficient, and they'll just continue just not having any issues, because we haven't seen any issues yet with the racing and multi-class.
No, we really haven't. Now, granted, we still have about 2 hours and 5 minutes left here.
I literally just jinxed it, didn't I?
Well, hopefully not. Here is the leader for the GT3 class. This is Nathan Medina, who has started to get a little bit of a gap right now on Brian Halleck. The gap is 1.5 seconds on the 2 BMWs. Mark Herzog is there. Vince Harley holding right on to the back of those 2 BMWs. And we talk about draft here so often at Daytona with stock cars. Around here, especially as Herzog goes to the outside in turn 1, cannot take the position. Look to try to set himself up here going into the International Horseshoe, as I believe Brett Trosen, I believe, has had an issue. Let's see if we can take a look at what happened here with Trosen. This is one of the GTEs going into turn 5 and just too hot in. Back end steps around. Doesn't hit anything, is able to keep going. Here's David Gargo Jr. going into turn 1. This is the 6th position in the GT3s. Overshoots turn 1 and then slides it around. Doesn't hit the wall. Oh, so he got a little bit of a bump there at the back end of that, as here's Trosen. But going back to what I was trying to set you up for there, Nate. We talk about the draft being such a big thing in these stock cars, especially in the lower GT classes. That draft could definitely be the difference between a position and not.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're not, gaining on anybody, you're losing half a second a lap if you're not in anyone's draft. And the nice thing, too, we talk about it kind of in a sense like stock car racing, but not really, is that you can save lots of fuel when you're just riding behind. I kind of talked about it with the LMP2 class, just riding around saving fuel. So if you can save that extra lap or two, and let's just say if saving that extra lap or two can make you one last stop. Now tonight we're expecting 2 stops at least for all the classes, but let's say if you're in a 24-hour race, that can make a huge difference over those 24 hours. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of fuel saving with the draft. I think we'll see a lot of passing, though, being used by it just because of how insane it can be, especially here at Daytona.
I would certainly agree with that. As we go back up to the overall class leader, this is Michael Broomhead, currently with a 1.2 second lead over Jeff Cardamone, who has gotten into this is the part of of multi-class racing that some people just do not like, is the fact that you are seeing all 3 classes represented in one screen right there, and it really hurts you. It really can hurt you, as there you see McClure running a little bit wide, running second in GTEs. It certainly can hurt you if you're trying, like Cardamone is, to try to get back up to the lead.
Yeah, he's trying his hardest, and he got pretty held up there, actually. So it'll be interesting to see if he can continue that. But what comes to him is eventually going to come back to Michael. Eventually, he's going to find, a pocket of traffic that he just can't get around. That's going to let Jeff catch up to him. So Usually, what goes around comes around in multi-class racing. So, just because he got kind of the short end of the stick that time doesn't mean he's going to be on the short end of the stick every time.
And I'm noticing with Jeff Cardamone, he is taking turn 6 incredibly wide, trying to get the straightest run possible onto the NASCAR circuit. And while that can be a good strategy, that also can create some problems, because if you're really trying to spin the back end of that car around to get it as straight as possible as soon as possible, you're really putting stress on those rear tires.
Yeah, in that corner, you can take that like 3 different lines. You can either take it really tight, the shortest distance. You can take it in the middle and try to use less tires, or you can take it wide, carry the maximum apex and exit speed possible, and accelerate that way too. So there's multiple ways to take that corner. It's just a matter of over time which route is the best, and that's just for the drivers to figure out. Maybe for them, sometimes the bottom's the best way, sometimes the top's the best way.
As you're watching Jeff Cardamone, Michael Broomhead, your current overall race leader, going back now to the GTEs. Here is Ethan Oswowski, currently holding a 3.5 second lead now over Richard McClure. Here is McClure. Now McClure looks as though he gained a little bit of time back from the issue with the faster class drivers trying to get around here. As there's somebody off in the back there. I believe it was Sean Duhamel. Yep, and just back end comes around. And that's turn 5. It's not as tight overall as the International Horseshoe is, but that thing certainly, it's a tight exit and a wide open, really, a wide exit, really can catch some of these guys out, and for Duhamel, it did there.
It's by far the second hardest braking zone to hit on this racetrack. The reason why is because in T5, that left-hand kink, you're so loaded on the right front tire, and then when you come off the brakes, the left front, it wants to lock up because it doesn't have any of the body weight on the tire. So you end up, half the time what ends up happening is you lock up that left front, you have to release the brake, and then by the time you put the brakes back on, you're already through the corner, you panic, you jam on the brakes harder, and that's why we see these rear end rotation spins, usually in T6, just because people make a slight mistake on entry, and then they really pay for it at the apex.
Yeah, and usually for me, it's if it's not turn 1, it's turn 5, certainly, and we've seen a lot more incidents down in turn 5 than we have seen overall, as there is, once again, going back to the GT3 class, this is Nathan Medina, and I had predicted during qualifying that the Lamborghini was going to have a very strong showing here tonight. Vince Harley has been able to get past Brian Halleck for the 3rd place in this class. Lamborghini right now currently running 1, 3, and 5 in this class. As here is 5th position, Ozzie Milwane. These Lambos putting on a very strong performance here in this 2.4 hour race.
Yeah, I think most people have resonated with the Lambo since the build came out. More people have bought the Lambo, of course. So there's people obviously think the Lambo has more pace. And at the moment, it certainly looks as if the Lambo does have more pace than the BMW.
And for me, I'm a Ferrari guy personally, and am not a fan of Lamborghini. But kind of like what I was doing pre-race before we went live, I was sitting there the night the Lamborghini came out, and I was saying, I had my finger on the button to buy it, and I'm like, don't buy it, don't buy it, don't buy it. Then I blinked, and I'm driving it around. I think it was Road America was the first place I took it around. So that just goes to show the impulse control that I have.
There is a logjam right now behind Mark Herzog. There is at least 7 cars just bundled up, and they cannot release because in the infield section it's just so tight.
Yep, and that includes the overall leader, Michael Broomhead, now getting through these guys for a second time in the number 54. And Cardamone actually has caught up just a little bit, caught up 3/10 that last lap, and now granted traffic. He's about to catch and pass Nathan Medina right now, who is the GT3 leader. And there they go. But now Cardamone having a really good look at the back end of the class leader right now.
Cardamone set his fastest lap of the race thus far, the previous lap, and just as I said, what goes around comes around, and all of a sudden he's right back where he was about 5 laps ago.
These two have split off by about 3.5 seconds over the third and fourth place drivers in the overall class. There you see one of them. That's Joey Haynes trying to get around Medina, the GT3 leader, and makes that one fairly easily. Gregory Hectus has not found his way through this traffic easily whatsoever. He has fallen about 2 seconds off of Haynes at the moment right now. So Hectus had great pace. It looked as though all alone. But for right now, he's having issues here trying to get through this field.
I think if anyone's looking forward to the pit stop to change tires, I think it's probably Gregory at the moment, because like you just said, he's kind of fallen off the pace from what he did. But of the top 5, the last time around, he's by far the fastest with a 35.6. So maybe he just went through a phase with his tires to just try to get him in that spot. And maybe he's going to turn it back on now. Who knows?
Certainly, I mean, hoping for as much of a competitive race as possible. So we're certainly hoping for Hectus to try to figure out what's going on with his car. That could also just be thinking, we have an hour and 55 minutes of this race left. Why push it now? But there is that fine line of, yes, why push it now? But you also don't want to fall too far back.
Yeah, that's kind of one of those things, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You got to balance it. And that's what some of the greats do. They balance it really well. And at the moment, I think Gregory is in a really good spot for the podium still. I think he can easily catch up to Joey. And I think over time, I think he can catch up to this battle at the front between Michael and Jeff. So it'll be interesting to see. Like we said, he's been really fast all night. He's out on the pole, of course. It'll be interesting to see how he does throughout the night if he can catch up to the front group here in the LMP2 class.
We're looking at Greg McEnany right now, who currently sits in the 9th position in the GT3 class. In that Forge Racing Lamborghini Huracan. He had some sort of an issue that we're going to show you right here. This is going into turn 6. And does he put too much power down? He does. And just up and loops it around. Nothing too severe. And with all that asphalt there, it is fairly easy to recover if you do, in fact, put too much power down.
That throttle point where he lost it at, that's such a bumpy sequence where it's super easy to even just get the car mildly upset. Even with traction control, it's pretty easy to loop it there, and Greg just proved how easy it is.
Those guys right now are, he is on lap 18 right now, I believe, which means we should be looking here fairly soon as we go back up to the overall race lead. Michael Broomhead, this could be pit stop territory for him soon. They are working on lap 21 right now. And we had said in the cheat sheet a little bit earlier, about 23 is when these guys are going to come in. So this is the time where you're starting to really suss out, okay, how badly have I hurt these tires? Do I need to change them now, or can I wait for, say, the hour mark to come in and change them?
So, I mean, you just said 23 laps is about the max. We're working lap 21 now. If I'm Jeff, I'm seriously considering pitting this lap and trying to get the undercut on Michael, because there's traffic about 7 seconds away from these two here, which they'll catch the next lap. If he pits here, he won't have to deal with that traffic like Michael would have to. So it'll be interesting. I think one of these two will pit here.
could possibly think is there is Dan Garber. Now, Garber has had an issue here as well just moments ago. This is going into this is going into turn 5. Through the kink in 4. Locks it up, goes straight on. And that, again, we've seen that all night long. As we go back up to the front here to see who is coming in, who is not. No one has come in just yet. They're all staying out. So now working on lap 22 of this event. And we've seen it especially in you and I who called the iRacing E-Series race on Friday night. There is a very big, about a 2-second overall time difference as far as the undercut goes. However,
Broomhead just made contact with someone there.
There is Michael Broomhead. We were watching that live. This is right behind, as we were mentioning before, with Greg McEnany. Doesn't appear to be any damage on the front end of that Dallara.
I think you got away with it, honestly.
Yeah, that looked like a decent little collision there. Doesn't look as though he's ruffled any feathers on that or clipped any winglets. Would be probably more apropos on the front end of that 54.
So both of them set their fastest laps of the race there, only 0.004 of a second apart. So the tires aren't bad. We can conclude that of those laps there, and neither of them pit. So either we're like one lap away, or our cheat sheet's wrong.
Yeah, or we're off a little bit. This is right around the time, if you watch the European race a little bit earlier on, this is right around the time where these guys would have started to come in around that 35-40 minute mark. And this track, if you did watch that European race, this track got and stayed really greasy over the course of the day. Still an 82 degree track temperature, and it is a humid night out here tonight in the eastern part of Florida. 68% humidity being shown right now, and still a 13 mile an hour wind blowing to the east. So it's not the easiest of track conditions to run one of these races.
So east here at Daytona, to my knowledge, is a headwind into NASCAR 4. So that would essentially mean that there's a tailwind breaking into T6, which that would explain why we were seeing a lot of incidents there.
And that has been the end of the racetrack, that if you do catch one gust of wind, you had mentioned it's very bumpy down at that end of the circuit. And now here we come. Here comes Michael Broomhead. Here comes Jeff Cardamone. They're coming in. These are the top two leaders. Joey Haynes is in as well behind them. So right now, here are the overall leaders in pit road. Gregory Hectus stays out. So Hectus will try to extend it one more time, and we'll see which, if any of these three cars here, go up on the jack stands. Now they're going to fuel the cars first, and then after the fuel is in these cars, then you will see the jack stands pop up under them if they are changing tires. I would have to assume this early in the race, I wouldn't be changing tires at this point.
If I'm them, I wouldn't be, but I'm not them either. So Broomhead does not take tires.
Cardamone does. So Cardamone is the only one of the three guys that pit now.
Oh, Broomhead hit wall.
Oh, no, Broomhead is, you're right. Broomhead has, and he's had to tow it back. So that right there has just cost him about 5 minutes.
Is not, pit exit here is so tricky, and he just overdid it.
You know what that reminds me of? Now, it wasn't exactly the same. He had done it a little bit later. I think it was maybe 2008 when Jeff Gordon, driving with the SunTrust team, ended up hitting that pit wall and really destroying that prototype. Now, who was it that just a broomhead hit it straight on, but still that is huge for the guy who came in as the overall race leader. As now here comes Gregory Hectus is in, Robert Covey coming in as well. I mean, that is devastating for this race.
He had to lock a rear tire. There's no other explanation as to why you'd spin that way, because he kind of pulls to the right and then goes around, and that's just probably not adjusting your brake bias after your pit in.
Speaking of drivers of the number 24, here's Andy Spicer. Pardon me. Here is Andy Spicer. And as you had mentioned, that 12, 13 mile an hour wind is going to wreak havoc with Spicer here as he ends up hitting that tire barrier right at the outside of turn 6. So Spicer with some right side damage to the side of his Dallara now.
And he was one who did not take tires either.
As there's Nathaniel Medina. Medina has not come in yet. Medina has had a major issue because he was the overall class leader for the GT3s. He is now in fourth position in the class.
Just the T1. I don't know if you've caught it yet. He actually got a slight touch from Richard McClure. I don't know if you've caught it yet or not, but
yeah, we're looking at the replay now, or trying to. Unfortunately, iRacing not being kind. But yeah, oh wow, he ended up way out there. Did Medina. Unfortunately, iRacing not playing nice with the replays there. So now the overall GT3 leader has now fallen down into the 4th position. That will promote Vince Harley into pit road. And that's another thing we haven't really touched on. We've talked about how stable these cars are from make to make. There is also a difference in fuel mileage. And if I remember right, I do believe the Porsche, at least in the GTE class, they do get the best fuel mileage out of the lot. So that could have also played into the decision as to who takes what car.
yeah, and that does make a significant factor because you can go that extra little bit on fuel. So yeah, I think the Ferrari's really kind on fuel, and the Porsche, like you said, they're really kind on their fuel consumption. So if they can continue to really manage that, I don't see why they couldn't maybe extend 2 to 3 laps and use that lightness of the fuel to maybe pull a gap and use the overcut.
And go figure, it's the American car that drives like a pig. Here is that American car, the Corvette CR8. This one being piloted by Richard McClure, currently sitting 2nd in the GTE class. Look a little bit further behind him. There is Spencer Todd, currently running 3rd in class. So he's got several GT3 cars behind him. The top 3 here in the GTE class separated by a good 9 or 10 seconds. As Ethan Oswowski right now, that is accurate. If I have my, that is accurate. Ethan Oswowski right now currently running 12th position overall, as Rob Courtney has had a mare of an evening right now. Here is Courtney in the number 64. Courtney's had himself several issues here tonight, running so far last overall in the LMPs and 15th position overall. And that's the part of multi-class racing, and that's a battle for third position in class on the inside, and those LMPs have to find a way around them.
Absolutely, and I've just noticed, I've been looking at Cardamone because he was the one who took tires there of the LMP2s. He's not making any inroads on the top two at all. He's actually running slower lap times than Haynes is. So I think he learned that probably wasn't the greatest strategical decision. And he learned, though, that he'll be in better shape when they come in again, because he's going to know how their tire wear is. He's going to know all that stuff. So he should be in better shape as this race goes on.
Now, it could also be that, again, if you're expecting these classes to take just one tire stop, he's gotten that tire stop out of the way right now, so that's good. The bad news and the flip side of that is those tires are going to be shot come the end of this race, and that really could play a factor as to possibly being the overall winner.
Absolutely, but the other thing, there's two sides to that. Like you just said, he's going to be slower probably at the end of this race when the other guys come in and take tires on their next stop, we believe is what's going to happen. Eventually his tires are going to get up to that optimal stage where he can start to make inroads on these guys. So it'll be interesting to see after the next round of pit stops where Jeff is situated at. Is he ahead of this group or is he behind this group?
Looking right now at the pit stop times for the top 5 drivers, the 4 of the top 5 right now, Haynes, Hectus, Spicer, and Duhamel, did not take tires on that last stop, and you could see as now Holman actually goes up into that 5th position. All of those guys not taking tires on their initial stop, there is a 22-second difference between the drivers that do take tires and the drivers that don't. On track right now, Cardamine has a 19-second gap behind Joey Haynes. So right now, if Haynes and Hectus were to take their tires on this next stop, which we're expecting in about 15 to 20 minutes, that means the lead for Jeff Cardamone.
Yeah, absolutely. So that'll be interesting to see that progress through here and see if maybe he's able to make this advantage work. The race might come back to him. I believe it will, just by the way we were looking at the deltas and stuff like that. I think Jeff is going to eventually become the net leader once Joey and Gregory.
We're looking now at the class leader for the GTEs. This is Ethan Oswowski. Currently working on lap 28, and as we had mentioned, about 33 to 34 laps for these GTE guys. So those guys would certainly just be taking one tire stop. You may need to make 2 stops overall. Just come in, fill the tires, fill up the fuel tank at about the hour mark, take tires, and then you could take your short fill stop at the end to run the last half hour. That would appear to be the best strategy for the GT guys. The GT3s, however, they're going to be 1 lap shorter than these GTEs.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how these GTEs do. Personally, I'm running the GTEs for our 24 hours of Daytona race. We expect that we can get 3 hours out of the tires. So that'll be interesting to see if people just don't even take tires in the GTE field, which I'm guessing people like Spencer and Richard, who are not at the pace of Ethan at the moment, if they decide to do that.
Those guys, you can, as noted, you can make up time. At least in the LMPs, you can make up 22 seconds with a tire stop. Right now, Joey Haynes currently leading the LMP class. If you had missed it, coming out of pit road, For the LMP2 pit stops, the leader going into pit road was this man, the driver of the 54, Michael Broomhead. Now, Michael Broomhead had made his stop, did not take tires, and then had this happen to him as he was coming off of pit road, trying to get as much speed as possible coming out of pit lane, and just locked the rear up, got into the grass, and from there nosed it on into the tire barrier at the end of the pit wall. He lost about 3.5 to 4 minutes towing the car, then had to make the necessary repairs. He has fallen from 1st to 11th in the overall category, and there is Joey Haynes behind him, about to lose a lap now to the overall lead.
Interesting why Michael wouldn't kind of just sit behind Joey and just kind of just maybe learn. Like we just said, he's kind of out of contention for the win at this point. He's just trying to make up points, trying to maximize in case if somebody else drops out of the race. Just kind of sit there and maybe just chill. That's what I would be doing if I was Michael, but I'm not Michael. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he's able to maybe make something out of the night other than being in 11th position.
There is, again, the 54 of Michael Broomhead. Joey Haynes, class leader, right behind him. Here is third place overall. Second place overall, Joey Hectus. Currently 5.5 seconds, or 5.25 seconds, rather, behind the overall leader, Joey Haynes. Going back now to the GTE class, there is your race leader. Ethan Ozwowski currently has a 6.5 second advantage over Richard McClure, who currently sits in second place. Back now to the GT3s. Boy, there is a wild mess happening here in the GT3s. We might stick with them, as I believe that's one of the Porsches that's around right now. I believe it was Maurice Galamone. It is. Boy, and he has some damage to the back end of that Porsche.
Yeah, that definitely looks like pretty significant damage too.
Yeah, you see, he lost it coming out, or going into one. And right now is just having a heck of a time just trying to get it back around. And boy, that Porsche is bent up in the back end, and you see that's one of the key things about these multi-class races. Those headlight flashers, and sometimes people tend to take that the wrong way. It's a simple, I'm a higher class car, could you please move? At least that's how it's intended. Other drivers might use those a little bit more aggressively.
The key word in that statement you just made was intended, because you can use those flashers for so many different things. You can use them as communication devices if you're in the middle of a team to like move out of the way. You can also use them to distract your opponents. So if you're trying to maybe throw them off guard into a braking zone, hit the flasher, they see that, they get thrown off, they lock up a tire. It's happened to me before. I've done it to other people. It's kind of one of those fair game kind of deals where it's kind of just, hey, I'll do it to you, you can do it to me. It's one of those things.
Or you can use them the way I use them. Get out of the way. If you're going the speed limit, you shouldn't be in the far left lane. That's at least how I use them.
Not as well.
This is Ossie Milwane, who is currently leading the GT class, and this man right here, Vince Harley, has really made some inroads here. Now, Harley started in the 7th position in class. We saw him working the back of the BMWs from 5th position earlier on. He has now gotten up to 2nd, and he has that Lamborghini Huracan right on the back bumper of the class leader.
I think he's really, really good when this stage of the run. partially just due to the fact that he's kind of gotten used to the car. The track is getting cooler. We're past sunset now, and as you note, it is starting to get dark around the track, which maybe this is what he needs in order to be competitive tonight.
And he has certainly taken that long run speed and has worked himself right up into that second position. As we look further back here, that is Nathan Medina, who is around actually in the bus stop. And that's another mistake for Medina. And I believe, nope, that rear wing looks fine. But another mistake, this time unforced, from Nathan Medina going into the bus stop as we look at it here.
And that's just one of those things that you're going to see throughout the night. People are we're at that stage of the race. We're about an hour in where people are this is where the mental fatigue is kind of setting in. You're realizing, no, there's an hour 30 left. And this is kind of the part of the race where people start to think, okay, I can do this. Or they're starting to think, oh my gosh, I can't believe we have this much further to go. So you'll start to see the mental focus aspect of this race start to kick in about now, actually.
I have run plenty of VRS races. Like, I think the last one I ran was an hour-long race at Zandvoort. And it really depends on where you are in the field as to where that mental fatigue sits. For me, I was running up towards the front. I'm like, wow, we're 55 minutes into an hour-long race. It's almost over. It felt like 20 minutes, but if you're in a situation like, say, I believe Sean Duhamel. Oh, well, no, Duhamel's in fifth. Jason McSparron, maybe, who's running in ninth, not having one of the greatest runs. That hour and a half that's left can seem like a day and a half.
And the nice thing, too, as the GTE guys are starting to hit their pit stops, this is like a little mini break you can have.
Yeah, that's Ethan Oswowski right now, the class leader for the GTEs coming in. As we had mentioned, this is their working lap 33 right now when they cross the line to enter pit road. Richard McClure coming in as well. He's right behind him. That is Joseph Homan making his second pit stop in front. As it looked like no tires for Oswowski, no tires for Richard McClure. Now Spencer Todd, who was the pole sitter for this
GT3s are in too now.
Yep, GT3s, you are right. Some of them are in. That's Robert Gamble. I believe that's Robert Gamble was in. Yep, there is Robert Gamble in the Lamborghini. Top guys are not in just yet for the GT3s. And that's another thing that could really mess with these GTE and GT3 guys. Because they are so similar, the GTEs do have a little bit more speed than the GT3s. But because they are so similar pace-wise, they're going to be pitting together, and that could wreak some havoc on pit road.
It absolutely, especially on pit out. I mean, we saw how critical pit out can be to your race. With the instance of, hitting the pit wall. And you can use that little delta there to make the important inroads in your race. If you can't get out as quickly as you can, that can cost you a second, which can cost you position, which could cost you the race. So every single aspect of pit road is important, especially pit out and in, which is affected by the multi-class.
And this is Ozzie Milwane and Vince Harley. Those two guys are coming in, almost collide on pit entry as Vince Harley was trying to take it as hard as he possibly could going into pit lane. So the top two guys in the GT3 class are in. As there you see, that is Milwane stopped in his box. Both of those guys have yet to, fill up enough to see who is going to be going up on jack stands.
Vince was extremely slow in his box. I just noticed that. He only went like 40 miles an hour and lost plenty of time.
Yeah, I believe that's Vince Harley on the way out right now. Oh, no, Vince Harley is still in there. Both of those guys still stopped. Wait to see if one of them goes up.
Vince does
And
not.
nope, neither one of them do. But the better stop goes to Vince Harley, who's going to take the overall class lead once the pit stop cycle out, barring a mistake here on this incredibly narrow pit exit.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out.
Oh, there they go. They're all good.
And I don't know if you can see those, but there's those yellow curbs on that pit out.
Yep.
And those will destroy your suspension just like that if you hit that. It's happened to me here before. I hate to say it.
Done it before as well.
Yeah, and it really throws your race off. That's an easy way to just throw away your race, like we just said.
Certainly is. As here is the overall race leader, Joey Haynes. As we come up, we're just, 40 seconds away from hitting the 1 hour mark here at Daytona. And Joey Haynes enjoying a 9.5 second lead over Gregory Hectus right now. Jeff Cardamone, who has come in and made his tire stop, has really not gained much from the last time we had spoken about him. The last time we had mentioned Cardamone, he was about 19 seconds back, 19 and a half seconds back. And with where they are running on the track right now, granted Haynes is in a little bit faster part of a track, Haynes is now 20 seconds ahead of Jeff Cardamone. So really no advantage played out by taking the tire stop so early, unless he was doing it just to get it out of the way.
So now if I'm Jeff, I'm concerned about Joey and how good his tires are, because he's putting in consistently well lap times for his fuel load that he has on board. I wouldn't be surprised if he's just wanting to keep extending these tire set. Who knows? Maybe he's got the greatest tire wear of all time and just stays on that set all race long. Who knows?
Jeff Cardamone, as you can see on the bottom of your screen right there, his best lap was a 1:34.8. Just ran a 1:37.3. Now, granted, he was in traffic, as we saw during that lap. Haynes ran a 1:35.9 that last lap, so 2.4 seconds quicker than Cardamone, who we see on screen right now. But again, that was in traffic, and that's another thing that plays with these gaps and intervals quite heavily, is you don't know who is where and who's got traffic and who doesn't.
Yeah, that's the thing about multi-class racing. You can never really gauge the gaps that accurately with lap times, because like you just said, you can be off by 3 seconds a lap just by hitting traffic in one wrong place. So yeah, we've seen the gap fluctuate between Jeff and Joey at the moment. We see it stable and consistently around 19-20 seconds, and we think it'll fluctuate still. But at the moment, Jeff is not quite doing what he needs to really get going forward and potentially take away the race lead.
He certainly is not. He just got around the 42. That is David Gargo, who currently sits third place in the GT3 class. Right now, you're seeing the leader of the GTE class, Ethan Ozwoski, who started in second, took the lead right out the get-go of this race and has not looked back since, currently holding a 7-second lead over the rest of the field. Richard McClure currently still sitting in second. Spencer Todd, who was the class pole sitter in the GTEs, currently sitting in the third place, and these guys are pretty well spread out. As Richard McClure, here he comes crossing the line, and there is your visual representation of where these guys are. He has Rob Courtney ahead of him, and this is actually for overall position on track right now. Courtney is in the 12th position overall in his class, 13th position overall. And you can just see Courtney, whether or not he has damage that he's trying to just roll with, or if he's just not comfortable with that Dallara not getting away the way you would expect an LMP to get away.
And the tires, I think, are a massive factor into that. I mean, like we kind of talked about the tires tonight, how they're important to just kind of, oh, I just figured it out. He had a cone stuck underneath of him.
Oh, there you go.
So that explains that.
Yeah, that certainly will, and that does nothing for front tire grip when you have a cone strapped in front of you. And you're right, he got that cone unstuck from him, and he has just blitzed away from Richard McClure as he should have done. You can see it looks like he still has something underneath him, other than, I mean, it could possibly be that legality plank that's under his car, but that could also be what's ailing him.
So, Frank, you're wanting to know why he's not as quick. I just found the answer for you. It's just because he had a cone stuck underneath the car. How simple is that?
Yeah, I mean, that's about as simple as you can get. I mean, sometimes the best answers are the simplest ones, no?
Absolutely.
And yeah, that is just now it is just the legality plank that is under that number 64 of Rob Courtney. Jason McSparron, currently sitting here in P9, has found himself a nice little pocket, and the reason why we are showing Mr. McSparron on broadcast, unfortunately, is not for a good reason. That's because Joey Haynes, the overall leader, is right behind him, about to lap him, unfortunately. That would push only 8 of the LMPs onto the lead lap, and we are getting ever closer to a pit cycle for these guys. It's been about a half hour since these guys have come in, expecting maybe 3 or 4 more laps before these guys come in again.
Something happened to Hectus. He seems way further away than what he was. Or is that just me?
Hectus has been falling off last lap, and has to be because of traffic. Hectus was 3.5 seconds slower. 2.5 seconds slower than Haynes that last time through. So he has caught traffic in a couple of very bad spots, and you can see there the graphic at the bottom of the screen there. Haynes gaining 1.1 seconds, 1 second even, actually lost half a second, gained it back the next lap, and then put 2.5 seconds on. So Hectus right now is just the unfortunate man who just seems to catch all the bad traffic in all the wrong places.
Yeah, so eventually, like I kind of mentioned earlier, it'll even back to him. I'd have to assume so. But this is the part of your race where you think everything's just going against you, and it goes back to that mental focus thing. You just got to push through it. We're almost halfway through this race, so you just got to kind of just push through it and say, okay, I just got to work on myself here. I can get to him. Just give me a little bit of time.
And there's your third place runner, Jeff Cardamone. Again, Cardamone still hovering around that 19-second deficit to the race lead. So not gaining back much time. Gained some time back there with Haynes having to deal with traffic. As we look, I believe this is going into fifth position right now. This is Andy Spicer. Now, the last time we saw Spicer in the 24, he was right side on into the turn 6 tire wall on the outside. He does not appear to have too much damage on that number 24, and is certainly giving it one heck of a drive right now in a top 5 position.
He's done very well for himself, so I think he's going to do, if he can just keep himself the tires underneath him. He's got a small gap ahead. He's got a small gap behind. You just got to focus on those gaps and try to minimize the gap ahead and maximize the gap behind. And really, when you say it like that, that just sounds super simple and easy to do. But
of course,
practicing it is a lot harder than just saying it.
Everything sounds easy when you say it. It does take a heck of an amount of talent to be able to run one of these for, I mean, the official class races here, save for the IMSA official series, that's 45 minutes around here? That can feel like one heck of an amount of time for some people. These guys are doing that plus, another hour and a half? I mean, these guys really have to put it together.
And plus they had 2 hours of practice before this. They had countless of hours of practice before today. You have a qualifying session as well. So, I mean, they're going to turn by the end of today almost 200 laps around here, which is a lot of laps.
It certainly is. And speaking of 200 laps, boy, you led that. I mean, you didn't know it, but you led one heck of a segue, sir. And by explaining that, I've just completely ruined the segue. But coming up next, round 2 of the Majors Series will be on February 21st. It will be the Daytona 500 in the 1987 NASCAR Cup cars. Both the 1987 Chevy Monte Carlo and Ford Thunderbird will be on display for a full-length Daytona 500. And for the American Sportsman Series, you can see it right here on ESPN on February 21st. So just a little bit more than 1 month's time.
So, fun fact, who won that race in 1987?
You know what? I should have known you were going to ask me that, and I did not look it up prior.
That's all right.
I could have sounded really smart.
You know, it's looking pretty smart as well. Ozzy looking right behind Vince here for the lead of the GT3 class.
Yep, as we're looking at the GTE leader. Now here is the GT3 class. And for those of you in either the Facebook or YouTube chats, if you want to answer that question, who is the winner of the 1987 Daytona 500, feel free. As this is the battle for the GT3 lead. Both of these guys have come into pit, and a little look to the outside by Ozzie Milway decides not to take advantage, and they do have to be careful because they have the faster class cars coming up behind them. Right now, that's the 72 of Robert Covey, who currently sits 6th position in the LMP class that's behind them.
Yeah, Robert didn't do Ozzy any favors there by taking away the inside, which he's completely entitled to do. It's just he had to be outside the lane while Vince could take his normal line.
And that's one of those things where, I mean, you understand it, just as you said, you can completely rationalize it, you can totally understand it, but when you're in that car, man, I'm sure he's a little hot right now. Probably not screaming and yelling, but he's certainly annoyed at the line that was taken, because as a lower class driver, you'd be saying, well, higher class drivers would be saying, get out of my way, I'm a quicker car than you. A lower class driver would be saying, well, I have every right to race around this track as you do.
And that's just the debate of all, and that's kind of, when you do official races in this mixed multi-class racing, you have different mentalities. You have the, I need to stick to my line, or, oh, was that a spinner, or was that just me that looking at that?
I think that might have been, oh, there is one
Big
guy
McErney
off, I think, yep. So we'll try to find where he is. Yep, that's Greg McEnany. Still not able to get that Lamborghini back on track. Finally does get it on asphalt. We'll see what happened to Greg here coming out of the bus stop, and it looks as though he just clipped that left rear like right on the line between the grass and the curb, and that curb is small at the back end of the bus stop, and it just threw him around.
small but deadly that curb is, and yeah, a lot of people have gotten caught up by that curb because it looks so inviting because it seems like it's flat, but it really isn't, and it just throws everybody off if you clip it the wrong way.
It's one of those Bob Ross happy little curbs there. Unfortunately,
Yes, absolutely.
It can certainly bug you from time to time, though. As we are an hour and 13 minutes, almost an hour and 14 minutes into this 2 hour and 25 minute event, so almost halfway through the opening round of the Majors Series for this 2021 season. Now, we will be here with ESPN. We will be here for every single race for the American Sportsman's class. We will be broadcasting this top split for the American Sportsman's class all season long. And we could not be more excited. And with everything that's gone on this week and with everything that's gone on just in the world recently, we've had two of our broadcasters out with COVID right now. Another one of them is having an illness in the family. I mean, this has been a difficult time for ESPN right now, but we're forging ahead. And Nate, thank you so much for coming in and filling in. And it was announced just after Friday night's iRacing East Series race. You're going to be with me on Friday nights every single week now.
I was going to just call myself Nico Hulkenberg, the super sub, but now I can't say that since I actually have a spot. Well, so that's gone out the window.
The super sub here at least. So Nate Hulkenberg sitting in here for Sam Cooper Bennett, who is one of our broadcasters who is out with COVID, unfortunately. And we're hoping should be up and in good nick for the Daytona 500 in a little bit more than a month's time. But also Tony Trapasso, who has been missing. As you see, there's the leader, Joey Haynes, running a little wide coming out of turn 5. But Tony Trapasso as well has been missing off of the broadcasts for a little while. Both of them suffering with COVID right now, unfortunately. And, of course, we wish them a speedy recovery. And I know, Sam, you're in chat right now.
And did you see his response to the question?
Yes, he essentially called me a fool. Bill Elliott, come on. Like I said, I should have known that. And that's one of those questions that you know, once you hear the answer, you're going to be incredibly mad at yourself because you should have known the answer, and that was it.
It happens to the best of us.
As you can see on the timing and scoring pylon, pit cycles, the pit cycle has begun. As you can see, that's one of the difficulties of getting into and off of pit road here in multi-class racing. That was the overall leader trying to get around and down into pit road around the leaders for the GT3 class. And that's it makes this exciting now, doesn't it?
And this pit stop is pretty critical to the race here, because if they take tires, we kind of understand if Jeff is in a good situation or a bad situation.
Yeah, right now, Gregory Hecht has decided to stay out there, so he has taken an extra lap. Now, he did come in one lap after Joey Haynes did, as we see a group of cars here in the LMP2 class on pit road here, as that is
Joey's
the
up
race
in the
leader.
air.
Yep, Joey just went up in the air. So Haynes is going on to a fresh set of tires. Here's Robert Covey. Now, Covey has come in and pit twice already here tonight. So I would expect Covey... I think Covey took... I think Covey short pit last time, because I'm only showing a pit time of 2 seconds for him, 2.5 seconds. So unless Covey
that might
short
be a
pit,
penalty.
and that could be it. So there's a possible speeding penalty for Covey then. Only 27 seconds total down pit lane, so that certainly could be it. There's Joey Haynes out of pit road after being stationary in his box for 1:22, which if you are a world racing fan, whether you watch Formula One or whether you watch NASCAR or IndyCar or whatever, a 1:21 pit stop, man, it feels like a day and a half.
I think the Mercedes pit stop from Germany in 2019 was only like, what, 56 seconds or something like that?
Yeah.
And to everyone in a Formula One, that was like, that's an eternity.
Yeah.
Think of how it feels for them.
And just think of I think the fastest Formula One pit stop ever was, I think it was, if I remember right, it was the Williams team of Felipe Massa, as Gregory Hectus is now in. And that's Sim Mortal LMP2, which looks like a beautiful car, by the way. That green, the way that green pops at night is beautiful. But I think it was Massa had a 1.8 second stop.
I think Red Bull did a 1.84 this season or something like that.
Right, that's
insanely quick.
And that's with an army of guys around the car. I believe in World Endurance, you're only allowed like 5 guys over the wall to pit the car.
Yeah, you're allowed 1 to help service the driver. I think you're allowed 2 for the tires functions, and 1 to fuel the car. Maybe 4. It might just be 4 or 5. It's one of the 2.
And Hectus did not take tires from what I'm seeing. Only took 27 seconds worth of fuel. So Hectus is either going to wait for his last stop to take tires or try to go without taking tires, as we have fully hit the dead of night here. An hour and 20 minutes into this race, so still an hour and 5 minutes to go. And with everything that's happened here tonight, that is still quite a bit of time for guys like Michael Broomhead, who had made his mistake earlier. It's not nearly as much time as he would like, but still a very long time to go here in the Daytona 2.4.
Yeah, and we kind of talked earlier about Greg. He sat on the pole. He fell back to 4th. We were wondering, is he going to come into the race? I think we have our answer now, Frank.
I think so. And looking back, Jeff Cardamone has come into pit road as well. Or at least that's what my timing and scoring shows, is that he has come into pit road on lap 47, the same lap as Joey Haynes came into pit road. Would have to expect a fuel-only stop for the driver of the 314. And right now, with the tire stop from Haynes and the non-tire stop from Hectus, there is a 5.5 second gap between those two. So that's the 12-second gap erased plus another 5 between the top two drivers overall. And Jeff Cardamone only 9.5 seconds off of these top 3. So unfortunately, it looks like Hectus might have waited a little too long for those tires, unless he can really get up and out now.
Yeah, he very well could. I mean, like we kind of talked about how his strategy is a little bit different than the other two around him. I think the tires will eventually get back to where he needs them to, but how long will that take? And that's the thing that just affects everything, is how long does it take to do this? At the moment, he seems okay, but give it 20 minutes, we'll know for sure then.
Going back now to the leader of the GTE class, here is Ethan Ozowski. I've said it. I've said it about 5 different ways tonight, and I'm hoping one of them was correct. And if we get an interview with him after this race, I would hope that he would be kind and let me know which
help
one
us
it was.
out.
Yeah, exactly. Just a little bit of just throw us a little bit of a bone here, as he's about to get lapped by, that is Robert Covey in the number 72, running 4th place overall. Ozowski has had pretty much the easiest race out of anyone here. He's really only had to worry about the LMPs around him. He has a 9-second lead in class right now. So that number 033 Porsche has been loving life right now here at Daytona.
Been pretty easy, hasn't it, for him? I mean, he really hasn't had a whole lot to worry about since about 20 minutes into this race. So he's had 40 minutes to kind of just drive around the racetrack. Now, you can't just cry and say, all right, if you're in the situation of, let's say, Richard McClure or Spencer Todd, you can't just say, all right, this race is over, because it definitely is not. We have still an hour to go.
And that's an hour, a minute, and about 20 seconds to make one simple mistake. And that one simple mistake, I mean, we saw it earlier tonight with Michael Broomhead.
Cut you off, but the GT3 guys almost just crashed the leaders.
Yeah, we're going back to them right now. Here is that battle. The lead now goes to Ozzie Milwane in that 113 Lamborghini, and as we had suspected, the Lamborghinis are dominant in the top 8 right now. It's actually split. The top 8 right now, 4 and 4, but those Lamborghinis have really put some distance between themselves and the BMWs. Now, there could have been tire stops in between here for these guys, but they have put 22 seconds on the closest BMWs.
Yeah, they definitely look like the better race car. I think the BMWs and the Lambos were very equal in qualifying pace, but at the moment, and I think it's going to ring true throughout the race here, this GT3 Lambo looks by far the most consistent car of the bunch throughout the entire field, actually, when it comes to drivability. It looks really good. If I was in the GT3 class, I'd definitely want to be in a Lambo right now.
And that's the fun of this series. It's not just we're not just going to be seeing, this is not just multi-class racing, as we already said. With the upcoming schedule, we have the 87 Cup cars. After that, we're going to Long Beach in the Lotus 79s. It's one of those, one of the Corvettes almost had a big moment coming off there. Then it's the Porsche 911s, the super late models, the Dallara Indy cars. We go back to these for Le Mans off-road racing. That's one of the incredibly fun things about this series is it's not just going to be multi-class road racing. You have to be good in every discipline if you want to have success here, which makes a 9-win season by Stevenson so impressive.
That's incredible, having a 9-win season in so many disciplines. Like, you literally just mentioned every single vehicle that you just said is a different driving discipline. You have to drive a NASCAR differently, you have to drive a super late model differently, the off-road trucks. If you're a good driver in one, that doesn't directly translate over. Now, these cars compared to the Dallara are a lot closer than, let's just say, these to a super late model, but you still have to learn and adapt. And 9 wins in a series that has that many vehicles is incredible.
And just think, you have these multi-class GTs, the 87 Cup cars, the Lotus 79, the Touring Modifieds, the 911 Cups, GT4s, the Dallara Indy cars, the current Dallara Indy cars, as we're seeing a battle for the lead here in the GTE class, as Ozzie Milwane trying to hold Harley off around the outside, side by side, going into one, and that's a spot where Milwane probably would have, Harley may not have made that dive about an hour ago, but right now, starting to get into the thick of it, you got to start making these moves.
Ooh, that was a little ambitious there by Matt there to try to get past him. But anyway, yeah, I'd say we got 57 minutes left to go. It isn't exactly go time yet, but the thoughts in your head, what is the only shot I ever get in the race? And so that's kind of starting to play into the mind of Vince here, is I should probably actually try to move forward and maybe pass here. But at the moment, you could just ride. You got a pit stop that we believe they're going to have to make still. So yeah, it's just one of those deals. I think it's actually, we're coming up about 10 laps away from that. Am I correct in that, or?
You're close, I would have to say. The GTEs last came in on lap 33. They're working lap 51 right now. The GT3s last came in on lap 32. They're working on lap 49 right now. So we are still a little ways away. As you see one of the Corvettes splitting this battle for the class lead here. It's the 69 of Matt Gelder, who has had quite a bit of issues here tonight in that number 69 Corvette. There you see the class leader, the overall race leader, pardon me, in Gregory Hectus coming up behind these two, and coming up right behind him has been a man on a mission. Joey Haynes has almost blown turn one, but he has come right back up to the back of Gregory Hectus, has closed that 6-second gap after the pit stop. He is now right on looking for his race lead back.
You know that Star Wars video where he goes, "Hello there"? That's exactly what that was from Joey. My goodness, he just threw it in there.
It's just making sure you know I'm here. And when you do stuff like that, it's hard it's hard for no one to notice that you're there. As Hectus trying to hold on to this race lead, it's going to get interesting going into the bus stop here. Actually, it looks as though Haynes didn't get the greatest run coming out, but he's going to have that draft going into the bus stop. Might try something better off into turn one.
We were just talking about how spread out this LMP2 field was. Now look at them. We got the top 3 and 3 within a second.
Yep, that's right. It's Jeff Cardamone. I didn't even realize he was there. He has come back up to the back of this group here as well. There is Jeff Cardamone. Now, Cardamone was one of the guys that was battling for the lead in the first stint, and under the first pit stop cycle, came in and took tires. Second pit stop cycle, Joey Haynes took tires. Gregory Hectus has not taken tires, as we're having a battle for the overall race lead here, as Haynes really throws it into turn one, gets a good run off. Joey Haynes to the lead.
Clinical. That's how you make that pass. Perfection. Literally threw it in there, never locked a tire, sent it around the outside. Easy does it, and away he goes.
That's absolutely, you're right. Beautiful job from Joey Haynes. We will take a look at that one more time here for the race lead. Going into turn one, you see how wide he is on the outside. Just cuts it back in perfectly for the overall race lead here in the American Sportsman. As Hectus, we just rejoined as Hectus went way wide in turn 6, loses second place to Cardamone. And now that is Michael Broomhead. He is not for position, but is still hanging right with these leaders, showing he does have the pace.
And I said, wait, I need to get my timer right. I said, wait 20 minutes to see if the Gregory thing was going to work out, and then it's cut that in half again. So at the moment, it's not working out.
You've had a couple of bingos here tonight. And Gregory right now, you're right, and I had mentioned it coming out of the pit stop. Maybe he did wait a little too long to take those tires, because now, like we said, there's a 22-second pit delta between tires and fuel. He's already lost this lead pack now by about a second, and it's going to continue to grow as he's fighting traffic now. As that is
and a lap down car.
Yep, that's David Gargo. He's essentially 22 seconds. He's 1 second off of the second place right now, plus 22.
So the strategy hasn't worked yet, by the looks of it. So unless if maybe, which I don't see the top 2 taking tires at next pit stop.
No.
And yeah, I don't see how this is going to go back to Gregory's race. He probably will stay on the podium, but at the moment, I don't see how he recovers to the overall leader.
And if I'm Jeff Cardamone right now, looking at what Hectus has done with his pit strategy, Hectus has decided not to take tires until the end. Cardamone came in and took tires right at the beginning. So what Hectus's car feels like now is going to be what Cardamone's car feels like at the very end of this race, where you do not want it to feel that way. So if I'm the 314, I'm a little concerned by looking at what's happening with the 187, because I've already pulled 2 seconds on him.
Yeah, so at the moment, this is Joey's race to lose, if I had to guess. And maybe this race, unless Joey takes tires to play it safe, which I could see him doing, and maybe Jeff as well. Yeah, I don't really see this. This is going to get crazy here.
Yeah, that was a big cluster going into turn one. The car they were trying to pass was Greg McEnany. I mean, and in this mess, by the way, is there's Gregory Hectus right in the thick of it now. Haynes and Cardamone have gotten around this mess. Hectus is still in it with, I believe, that's second place in the GTE class. Richard McClure right in front of him. It is. There's also a lapped LMP2 up here in Michael Broomhead, who, because of just one simple mistake, is now caught a lap down.
Yeah, we could easily be talking about how Michael is controlling this race at the moment. Instead, we're just talking about how he's latched onto the leaders.
And he was, as we had mentioned, he was the race leader going into the pit stops earlier on. We'll go back and look at the replay as to what happened to him earlier on tonight. This is during the first pit stop cycle. Comes in with the lead, does not take tires on pit exit, locks the rears up, gets into the grass, has to take a tow back to pit road, and that is how he put himself in the predicament that he is in right now, running third in line, but eighth on track.
It's just one of those deals with endurance racing where one mistake can ruin your entire race. I mean, like we just said, he should be up here at the front. We should be talking about how it's Michael, Joey, and Jeff. Instead, it's just Joey and Jeff at the moment. And really, I mean, this race is fantastic. Don't go anywhere because we have battles throughout all three fields. But yeah, at the moment, it's just a two-man race at the front for the LMP2 class.
Certainly is seeing this is the battle here for the overall class lead here, as Joey Haynes has the overall lead by about just under 2 seconds over this man right here, Jeff Cardamone. We go now to the GT3, the GTE class leader, who is actually getting put a lap down by the overall leader, Ethan Ozowski, currently holding a 14-second lead over Richard McClure in that Forge Racing machine. Their second year here with the Major Series. And he really has made it look easy in that Porsche. And as we had mentioned during the practice and qualifying sessions, this Porsche really all over. It's got a decent mix of power, decent mix of handling, decent mix of balance, and the fuel strategy for this, and the fuel load and the fuel capability of this Porsche is just a class up. As there is, that's the 355, the 350 of Greg McEnany, and boy, McEnany has just had, he has had an abysmal night here tonight. He's last in the slowest class. However, last overall goes to Matt Gelder, who is driving one of the Corvettes here tonight. But Ethan Ozowski has made it look so easy in that Porsche here tonight.
Yeah, he absolutely. It's been clinical. He's done everything he has to do in that class, in that car, to be in first place, and he hasn't had a single mistake that we know of, and it's just been clinical.
Yeah, the classic "as we know of" goes through. Going into this is the GT3 class. Ozzie Milwane currently holding the race lead. Now, he was not the race leader coming out of the pit stops. That honor went to Vince Harley. Since the action we saw about 20 minutes ago on track, you see up at the top of your screen there is Vince Harley. There's a 4-second gap now between the GT3 classes, which has had consistently the best racing, honestly, throughout the course of this race at the top of the class. And if you would put it second, only second to the LMP2s. I believe that's there was a car off in the bus stop, and I believe it's Matt Gelder. It is. One of numerous incidents, unfortunately, tonight for Matt Gelder. We'll take a look and see what happened here to Gelder. He's got a Porsche coming to his inside in the bus stop. And then just the back end just comes completely around on the 69. And Gelder right now, currently, unfortunately, is sitting last overall. Roughly 12 laps down to his class. It has been a long night, and we were talking earlier about sometimes these 2-hour races go like a flash. For others, it takes forever, and unfortunately for Gelder, he's in the latter group.
Yeah, he just hasn't looked comfortable, and these races are not fun when you're not comfortable in the car. So he's definitely in the bracket of this isn't comfortable at all.
He certainly has been, as you said, in that bracket. 12 laps down to his class, but back up to the GT3 lead. Ozzie Milwane has done a fantastic job here in this race. Got around Vince Harley, made a great move to get around him for the race lead, started third in the class overall, and he has just done a fantastic job from start to finish here since then. And I believe we've had another issue in the GT3, the GTE class. That's Spencer Todd in the Ferrari 488 that is off. That was at turn 1. Spencer Todd was running in third position. He didn't lose any places because of that, but he lost a whole heap of time. And, that's a big shunt with one of the LMPs. That's the 99 of John Navarra, who they had a coming together of doors. And that was a solid little hit. Looks like both of the cars, neither one of the cars come out looking worse for wear as far as damage, but for Todd, that cost him a decent amount of time.
And at the moment, Todd was kind of in his own race at the moment, where he really doesn't have a whole lot of people to look forward to catch, nor behind. Actually, he's only 5 seconds off of Richard, isn't he? So, well, he was. So, at the moment, he's just kind of hoping, all right, let's get to the end here. I'll take my podium. We'll go home. We'll look forward to Daytona. And I think he'll look back at tonight. You know, he did a very good job. He's out on the pole, but maybe a little bit in there is salty that he just couldn't quite convert it to the win at the moment.
Right now, he's sitting 17.5 seconds off of second place, and he's 11 seconds up on this man right here in the number 31 Porsche of Justin Garrick. Garrick is another driver who's had a solid night, up 4 positions from where he was in class. Started 8th, is up to 4th. Has had a very good run here tonight, and we say it a lot here on ESPN. Just because we don't talk about you doesn't mean you've had a bad night. he has had one of those very quiet, uneventful nights thus far, and honestly, in multi-class endurance racing, that's exactly what you want. It's just a quiet night.
Under the radar, no incidents, nobody's mad at you. That's exactly what you want. And he's done the part tonight. Nobody's been mad at him. He hasn't been involved in anything that we know of course. and he's done really good job.
And with this with our overlay system here, Justin Garrick, speaking of him having a nice, calm, and quiet night, and I hope not to jinx him here, he is one of just 3 drivers tonight that has not had any form of off tracks. He is one. Gregory Hectus is another. He has not had an off track in the LMPs. And the other one is the driver of the 199 Ferrari here, this black and gold machine of Chris Branson, who has done a fantastic job. Watch the LMPs coming in as he tries to get around to GT3.
He almost jinxed it.
Yeah, and this is the problem with multi-class racing, coming at it again.
And then, I was about to say, I was watching Jeff Cardinal in there, and he had a perfect opportunity to just go past Matt Gilder and Vince Harley, and they were side by side, and he couldn't quite get past them as efficiently as possible. Cost him 3/10. Now he's out of the draft of Joey.
That's put Cardamone back now a second behind Joey Haynes with a Lamborghini, the class-leading Lamborghini between them. Not much longer, as you would have imagined. And I will say one thing for Michael Broomhead as we go back to this number 54. What Broomhead has been able to do here, while he's not battling for the race lead, he's 3rd in line of the LMPs, but sitting 8th on the timing pylon. When he had that mistake that has been well documented here tonight, he was in 11th. But with these guys up and lapping so many drivers here in the field tonight, and him being able to stick with them, he's been able to pick off position after position. He's up to P8 right now, and honestly, not too far away from this man right here in the 24 of Andy Spicer.
Sean. Yeah, he's really close to both of them. So, actually, he could get a top 5 here. He's only about 10 seconds away from it.
Yeah, and that is 6th and 7th on screen right now for the LMPs. The 617 of Sean Duhamel and the 24 of Andy Spicer. Joseph Holman is also in here. And then there's a 31-second gap to this man here, Robert Covey, who we've seen multiple times here throughout the night, working past slower traffic. So Covey, another one of those guys who has done a very good job here tonight, been very calm, very quiet, and has only had one off track.
There's a Brett Trosen.
Yep.
Whoa.
Yep, we just caught that as Brett Trosen. It's looked as though, we've seen a lot of guys having offs tonight, but it's been most predominant as it looked just like rear lockup going into one, which is so easy to do. He's going to take that pit exit, that winding pit exit. Those Chevrolets just do not seem fit to be running, at least here right now. They have seen, all of them have seemed very, very fidgety here tonight.
Don't tell me that. I'm running the car next weekend. Don't tell me that.
It could also come down to setup.
The Corvette's a very good car. If I just tell myself that, I'll be just fine.
And hey, listen, to put your mind at ease, this man on screen here, though, Richard McClure, has driven it.
There's the LMP2 that's off.
That would be... Trying to find it. I believe that was... Who was it that was off?
There's Sean Duhamel.
Yep, there is Sean Duhamel. And we'll try to catch it here because he was... We'll see here. He's trying to get past Joseph Holman, I think. If iRacing's going to be nice here. Yeah, he was trying to get past Holman, I think, and just had to slid it through the first half of the bus stop, I think is what happened there.
He was battling Spicer, and Spicer said, "This is my corner," and kind of just totally had disregard for Sean there and kind of just went and shot for the apex.
I think Brett Trosen just had another incident there. Yep, you see him backing up in the background there. There is Brett Trosen in the number 944 Corvette. That was right with the battle that we were seeing with Duhamel. And just, boy, caught those bumps on the outside. Didn't hit anything, though. Backs it up well off the racing surface and then gets going again. But going back to what we were saying to kind of mentally help you and to keep scarring yourself next week, Richard McClure has driven his Corvette CR8 like an absolute peach here tonight. Has not put a wheel wrong. Does have a couple of off tracks, a couple of close off tracks, nothing too major. But he has shown that you can run pretty well in one of these Corvettes. So there you go, Nate.
The back of someone. Yeah, I mean, pretty good. I wouldn't be too surprised that the Corvette does look very good. I'd say it's the second best GTE car. I'd say still that Porsche looks really good.
It certainly does. As here is John Navarra locking up going into turn 5, which has really been Calamity Corner. And as we had mentioned earlier on, there was a pretty stiff wind, and there still is a pretty stiff wind headed out that way. Still 10 degrees. And actually, I believe from what we are seeing right now, 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 81 degree track temperature, 70% humidity. I think we're a little bit warmer ambient temperature than what the European series ran earlier today.
I think so. So people that did the research from, that's like a nice thing about these Americans is that they can watch the Europeans and they see what they did, and they're like, okay, this is how this race did. This guy didn't do this thing right, so I can prepare for it. And the same with the weather. They saw what the weather was like in the European races, and they planned for it tonight. We're seeing the wind be different, the air temp be different, and the humidity as well. So all those factors have been drastically different compared to what the Europeans ran.
It's almost like being in the second dual race. Honestly, from just you can catch the draft and you can get a sense as to how the cars were moving around if you sit there and watch it just once. As we go back up to the overall race lead, as Joey Haynes has now walked away from Jeff Cardamone now to the tune of 5.7 seconds, P1 to P2. And Cardamone now actually coming under fire from Michael Broomhead in the number 54. Those guys still have not caught Andy Spicer. Well, they're just about to the back of him now. So here is the 24 of Andy Spicer. And there you see second place, Cardamone. Coming up at the top of your screen there. Joseph Holman is not that far ahead of him either. Just 4 seconds the difference between Spicer in the 24 and Holman in the 999. They do have the overall race leader, though, behind him in Joey Haynes. As they head out of the bus stop. Coming down to the final half hour of this 2.4-hour race. And Nate, this has been one heck of a show these guys have put on. Everything you love about multi-class racing has been put on full display here tonight as we have GT3 cars in pit road. There's Ethan Oswowski coming out of pit road. Richard McClure is in pit road as well. Oswowski, I don't think, took tires. So Oswowski running the full race on one set.
And Jeff's in the pits here too. So that'll be interesting to see what he does, if he takes tires, if he doesn't. And it'd be interesting to see how he chooses to do this.
This is Jeff Cardamone, as Nate just mentioned. Let's see, he has taken one tire stop here tonight already. As we wait to see what he decides to do here. Looking and waiting here for expectations would be, oh no, he's going back up.
Takes
he's taking
tires.
So 2 tire stops for Jeff Cardamone. That is interesting.
Unless Joey takes tires here, which I think Joey's going to look at that time and he's going to think, okay, can I conserve this lead, or is he going to take tires here? I think Joey plays it safe and just takes tires, if I had to guess.
I mean, and here he comes. We're going to get that answer here fairly soon. There's a little bit of a gap to Gregory Hectus, who is in second place in class. Here is Hectus coming through NASCAR 3 and 4 right now. And Hectus is going to stay out. Now that's not out of character for Hectus. He's stayed out at least one extra lap on both pit stops. As right now that is Joey Haynes, Joseph Homan, Andy Spicer in pit road for the LMPs. Going to see, I honestly would not expect Haynes to go up here.
You say no, I say yes. I wonder which one of us is right.
Because he's pulling the same strategy that I would have pulled. As there goes, yep, nope, there he goes.
He came out. Man, I was wrong.
Because he pulled the strategy that I would have pulled, which is get a new set of tires about halfway through the race. So this way you go even run on one set or on 2 different sets. So he thought the way I would have, and it looks like that could win him this race. We'll wait for things to cycle out here, but Gregory Hectus right now coming through NASCAR 2, going on to the back straightaway, and I believe that is the overall GTE leader. It is right ahead of him. So 2 class leaders here duking it out. There goes Gregory Hectus. Would have to assume he's coming in here, and my guess would be he is taking tires here. And no, he's going to stay out. So, I mean, you look like a genius on one lap, and then a lap later you look like a dummy. That's about par for the course for me.
So I think, we said that he's been on the tires the longest, correct? Has he even taken tires tonight?
He has not taken tires, and what we're seeing right now, before we get back to that, Vince Harley and Ozzie Milwane have both come in. Milwane nor Harley took tires there, and there has been a position change here for the GT3 lead. So Vince Harley in the 95 now leading with the benefit of a 1-lap undercut, has now taken the lead of the GT3 class. But going back to what we were talking about with Gregory Hectus, no, he has not taken a set of tires tonight.
Oh, what's another 15 laps gonna hurt? I bet he takes tires too, but I wouldn't rule it out that he just says, all right, we're gonna do this entire race on one set.
I mean, with the GTEs, it was with the GT3s, pardon me, not the GTEs. With the GT3s, it was predicted that they would run the full-length race here without taking tires, because they do run a lot slower. And if you can manage the car and work the setup in such a way, you're not going to have to worry about taking tires. These LMPs, however, put a lot more load on the tires, and now here comes Hectus. And in about 45 seconds, we will find out whether or not he will take tires.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what he does. I would not have done the strategy Gregory has done tonight. I would not have stayed out on these older tires, but the benefit is if he's going to have the freshest tires by far with the lightest fuel. So I don't know. I think he does take tires, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah, this is a full length. I mean, this is not going to be a full length pit stop, so you're not going to put 30 seconds worth of fuel in the car and then take tires for 20 seconds. You don't need to go nearly as far here. You have to make it right now just about 23 minutes, and he does not take tires.
Yeah, that's a strategy of the day right there.
There's the cowboy move.
So he's got, what, a 4.5 second lead to Jeff.
Yep, right now. Yep, 4.5.
Let's see if this works.
I mean, he really hasn't fallen off, to be fair, from what he has been running the vast majority of this race. So I could very easily see him in a battle for second place at least, if not just losing it outright. That's a bold strategy decision by the driver of the 187.
He kind of put himself into that situation when he didn't take tires that second stop, because he could either take tires and have the most pain here. I think this is probably going to end up, I think he'll lose the position, but it's worth a shot. I mean, what does he have to lose?
I love watching these cars at night here, because there's so much intricate stuff, and you can see that steering wheel as Hectus runs a little bit wide to the second half of the bus stop. You can see how much stuff is on that wheel and so many knobs and dials that these drivers can change and are going to be working with. That blue light that is on these, that focuses down on the steering wheel, it's just a beautiful aesthetic to the car that you can't see from the outside. That just really helps you as far as, boy, this sim really paid attention to the details.
Man, just riding inside these cars. I mean, I don't know if we're still on that shot inside the car, but that just gives you a sense of how fast these LMP2 cars are. And I mean, the power delivery that he's trying to do, all the lines, looking at the traffic, kind of gauging where he's at. Like, he has this GT3 car in front of him. What he's doing, he's trying to drive his own line, but he's also trying to think, okay, I'm going to catch this guy where? How do I prepare myself?
Just thinking, early February, as he's about to catch this BMW GT3, you'll see the speed difference right here. He's going to blow right past him on the NASCAR track like he's standing still, and can't even get that out before he's already up and past him. But you're gonna sit back and watch. In about 3 weeks' time, the NASCAR Cup cars go around here for, I believe, the shootout race, and you're going to see how slow they go through that infield section, that turn 4, that left kink. You see how much they have to let off and let the car roll, and how early they have to brake into turn 5. These things are flat out through turn 4 easily, and you can brake pretty late going into a very difficult corner at turn 5. These things will put these stock cars to shame.
And that's all due to weight in the brakes in these cars. I mean, these cars are so much lighter. And, Aussie is a long ways back off of Vince, I just noticed.
That's down the GT3
the GT3 class.
I'm still showing only 3.5 seconds, so that's honestly not too far off. It has maintained, again, these two swap positions on the pit stop. Vince Harley coming in on lap 63 for the GT3s. Milwane coming in a lap later for this class. One guy we haven't spoken about too much here lately is Mark Herzog. That number 75 BMW right now. Only BMW in the top 4. Really been holding on here. Started in 5th position in class in that Sector 5 BMW. And has really held his own against these Lamborghinis, where Brian Halleck, who you see here in this Forge Racing BMW, started on pole, has not shown the race pace, and has quite a bit of damage to that number 3.
Yeah, that's just unfortunate, and that's just the name of the game sometimes when it comes to stuff like that, where you're kind of just suffering through damage halfway through the race. And yeah, this race in the GT3 class, it progressed kind of how we thought it would, and at the same time didn't progress how we thought it would. We thought that there would actually be a little closer, and it really didn't turn out that way throughout the whole field.
I will say, we're seeing it right now on screen here, to Brian Halleck. If you do watch this race back, whoever did that caricature of your picture there did a fantastic job, by the way. No idea what you look like, but that was a very high quality caricature, and one that I would be proud of, certainly. As we go back to, I think we've had a change here, I think, for the GT3 lead, possibly, as Vince Harley right now. Yeah, Vince Harley has had an off somewhere, because he has a lot of damage now on that number 95 and is currently sitting in 2nd position. I wonder what happened there. I wonder quietly to myself.
He went deep into T5, but I don't think that's where he lost all of his time.
You see him getting past there.
Oh, he lost it in T2 on the curbing.
Just trying to look through it here to see. Trying to look through my thing here to see what happened there. But right now there is a change, as Ozzie Milwane has taken the overall class lead for the GT3s, and you see Vince Harley coming in. So that damage, as you had mentioned, from messing around on those curves, really put him back.
He just took his spare car, and he'll go back out, and I think he'll manage to stay in 2nd place barely if he gets out in front of Mark here. It's going to be close.
Yeah, there is Mark Herzog right there. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing the incident in my sheet here. Otherwise, we would show what happened. And there you see he is well out ahead. And this curbing here, as we see in the background, that's Nathan Medina going around in turn 1.
Oh, he's in the middle. Oh.
Yeah, that's a bad spot, because you got to back out, and it is hard to see at that portion of the corner. It is hard to see for drivers that are bearing down through turn 1, trying to look for their exit point. Now this one we can go back and show you. Just too hot in, turns it in. Oh, it looked like he might, no, actually he caught the grass on the inside of one.
You notice how hot his front brakes are there. Yep. I don't know if you got a good shot of him, but that just shows how much, one, ABS force are putting into the front wheels of this thing. I mean, I'm probably running 62, 63% brake bias to the front wheels just to get it to stop.
That's, as these tires get older, and again, we expected the GTs to not have to take a set of tires here, because again, they are so easy on the tires, partially because of the speed. They're not carrying as much load through the corners, lateral load through the corners. We expected them to not take tires, but with stuff like that happening, it does make it difficult for the last 16 or so minutes here of this race for you to try to get it home.
This is the part of the race where you're just mentally drained. You've done this for 2 hours now. You're at the point where you're like, okay, I want this to be done. Let's just get this home. And this is the hardest part of the race. Just right here. I mean, once you get that hour mark where you realize how much more there is to go, and when you can basically see the finish line, like right now, that's by far the toughest point of the race.
I think it was one of Jeff Gordon's earlier Coke 600s. He had asked about midway through the race how many laps there were left, and I think Ray said, "Don't ask me that again because you're not going to like the answer." Or something along those lines. And then he said like 250 laps, and Jeff was like, "You're right, I didn't like the answer." As still working here. We are just about to hit the 2 hour and 9 minute mark into this race right now. Right now, here is your overall race leader. Right there, the 3:38 of Joey Haynes, who has held the lead pretty much since the second round of pit stops at the 35-minute mark, and he has been the overall race leader since then. Gregory Hectus, who is coming into NASCAR 2 now, is trailing by 19 seconds, has not taken a new set of tires all race long. He is on the same set of tires he started the race on. Jeff Cardamone, on the other hand, has taken 2 sets of tires in the number 314, currently sitting third place in the LMP class. In the GTE class, there is the Forge Racing Porsche, the number 033 of Ethan Oswowski, currently leading by 44.3 seconds over this man leading by 25 seconds, a little bit of a mix-up on the timing and scoring there. Richard McClure, who has pretty much held second position since the start of this race. Spencer Todd, who we were going to a second ago, is sitting in third place in the GTE class with about 15 minutes to go, just under 15 minutes to go. And in the GT3 class, here's Ozzie Milwane, the current class leader here. He just took that after a mistake by this man, the driver of the 95, Vince Harley. And not too far behind Mr. Harley is Mark Herzog, who has been battling with Nathan Medina and Brian Halleck pretty much all race long, and after the first round of pit stops has gotten away from those guys in that BMW GT3. Would like to remind everyone that coming up on the 21st day of February, the Major Series Round 2 for the American Sportsman Series will be live right here on ESPN, a full-length Daytona 500 in the 1987 stock cars. So a fun night in store there. We've broadcasted plenty of 87 stock car races at super speedways, and they have been a blast, each and every one of them, and we would expect this race to be the same. Again, that is the Daytona 500 for the American Sportsman Series for the Majors 2021 season, coming up on the 21st day of February 2021. So as we look back now to the race lead, this is Joey Haynes. And Haynes, we had mentioned that Hectus had not taken a set of tires. Cardamone had taken 2 sets of tires.
And go back to that battle.
Actually, you're right, there is that battle, as Hectus is in a battle for that second spot. Cardamone on fresh tires, the 187 on the tires he started the race on. There they are, right there, nose to tail, line of stern, as they're getting around the GTE number 44 Porsche of Maurice Gomillon.
And you know how we talked about, we're an endurance race. You stay calm, you make smart decisions. That's gone out the window. We're only got 12 minutes left in this race. They're going to just go ahead and they're going to race how they would every, Dallara Dash race at this point. They got to try to get every position they can.
Yep, and there are not many positions out there to find. These two guys right here are the closest battle in the class. And unless they wreck each other here, which it does not look as though they will, heading into turn one, Cardamone just not close enough to try to make a move. These two guys, however, while they are right next to each other, they have a clearance back to Robert Covey by 1 minute and 5 seconds. So these guys are pretty well clear. And barring a total calamity, these guys will finish on the podium. And they are 24 seconds behind the race leader. So these guys really, this is their fight right now.
Yeah, this is all they care about in the world. They're not focused on Joey ahead. They're not worried about Robert behind. Jeff does have the clear pace advantages. He's going to take a look. Can't quite get it done. But anyway, yeah, he's just trying his best at this moment. Jeff's just kind of figuring out, trying to figure out where he's weak at.
He's going to get a great look going in here to the bus stop. As you saw there, the last 5 laps, Cardamone has been flying up to the back end of that 187 and now has relinquished that second place that Hectus once held. Jeff Cardamone into the second position. 2 tire stops here, and come to think of it, if he would not have taken that second tire stop there, or at least would have taken the stop with Haynes, he would be only about 2 seconds behind the race lead right now. Instead, he is 25 seconds off, battling for second.
It's one of those things where you'll look back at tonight and you'll think, okay, why did I do this at this point? We should have done this. And he'll regret that decision eventually, I think. But he's going to be fine with the second place, if I had to imagine. It's still on the podium, still great points. And you just got to look at it that way sometimes.
And it's not something you can correct for next week because
there goes Gregory. The tires just went away and he just looped it.
Yep, and there is Gregory Hectus right there. We just missed it off the back end of the screen, trying to get around Mark Herzog in the BMW going into corner number 5, which has been Calamity Corner tonight. Got around him, trying to make up the ground, and you're right, those back tires just said no mas and went right around on him.
And that's a consequence of 2 hours and 20 minutes of being on the tires. The tires eventually do have to give up. They eventually do lose grip, and that's just the case there.
Like we had mentioned, he can really coast from here. He has 1 minute and 7 seconds back to this man, Robert Covey. And you saw there, that was Hectus coming out of the bus stop when we picked up Covey. He was just going through the International Horseshoe. And if you look right now, just this is where these guys are all spread out throughout the racetrack. As Haynes in the 338, you can see him on that track map, the yellow number 338.
Joseph Horman is around entering the horseshoe.
There's Joseph Holman. There he is. Looked like something might have happened coming out of pit exit. Not saying he was coming out of pit road, but we'll see now what happened here if we can, which I don't think we will. Nope, he's already around by the time it picks him up. So Joseph Holman, I believe, has lost a spot to Andy Spicer.
He got helped around by Andy Spicer.
Well, there you go. So that's what happened there. That flips the 6th and 7th position. Spicer up to 6th, Holman down to 7th for the overall race lead. Going back now to the GT3s. It has been this man's race to lose. Pardon me, I was thinking of the GTEs, my bad. Ozzie Milwane somewhat gifted the race lead after the big mistake by Vince Harley that has put him 28 seconds behind right now. But Ozzie Milwane has been up there in contention in that Lamborghini the entire night. It started in the third position, got a great run on the start, was able to beat out the Lamborghinis. He's done a fantastic job, and right now, all three podium positions currently filled by Lamborghinis.
Yeah, they all three did a really good job, especially Vince. I mean, before Vince's incident, he started the race in 7th, and he had a really good chance to take the class win there for a little bit there. So, regardless of his mistake, Vince has got nothing to hang his head about tonight. I'd say there's a lot more people pleased with their results throughout the field than people that are angry.
Vince Harley started in the 8th position. Started in the 7th position on this start and has done absolutely nothing but move up through the field. One mistake, unfortunately, took him out of class lead, and that was essentially it for him. Ethan Ozowski is the race leader for the GTEs and has been pretty much from the word go. Started in 2nd, took the lead, and it has been smooth sailing for the Forge Racing Porsche ever since, currently boasting a 25-second lead. And the fun part about tonight is, sure, you could say the Porsche of Ozowski has been the dominant car, but if you look at the podium positions for the GTE class, Porsche 1, here's the Corvette 2, and then Ferrari 3. It's an even split on the podium for GTE right now.
It's been those three all race long. It's been that in that order too. Ethan's been leading in the Porsche, Richard McClure's been in 2nd place in the Corvette, and Spencer Todd almost all race long has been in 3rd in that Ferrari. So yeah, there's a good job from all three of those drivers to bring the respective cars home in their positions. And honestly, even though the Porsche looked slightly faster, great to see that the racing has been so close regards to all the manufacturers.
It certainly has been. As here's Justin Garrick, who we had mentioned. He is now closed up. He is only 6.5 seconds behind Spencer Todd in that 3rd place, trying over the last 4.5 minutes of this race to completely ruin what I had just said about all three manufacturers being represented on the podium. Garrick's still one of the few drivers that have not put a foot wrong. Still only 3 drivers in this race have not put a foot wrong all night long, and all of them are in the GTE class. And wouldn't you know it, never mind, Chris Branson is the other one. He's in a Ferrari. So 2 Porsches and 1 Ferrari have not put a foot wrong, have not had one off track all night. And for 2 hours and 25 minutes, that's one heck of a feat.
And incredibly impressive here at Daytona, because there's so many points on the track where you can cut it or go wide that having 0 incidents is a win in its own. So kudos to those guys for managing to accomplish that. I know it's no easy feat. So in a sense, that's a win in itself too.
Ozowski, Garrick, and the man you're seeing on screen right now, Chris Branson, the 3 drivers that have not had any off-track incidents here tonight. As we get down to about 2.5 minutes to go here in the season opening race, Daytona 2.4, here from the Daytona International Speedway in Daytona Beach, Florida. As Joey Haynes, we've documented it pretty well here tonight. Haynes currently leading by quite a margin over this man here, Jeff Cardamone. 26 seconds is the current gap between 1st and 2nd, but Joey Haynes has done an absolutely fantastic job, took the lead after the first round of pit stops, and the mistake by Michael Broomhead, who has worked his way up into 5th position just by sticking with the leaders. Haynes has done an absolutely fantastic job here tonight.
He hasn't done anything wrong, and that's the main thing that you have to do in these races. You know, you can't make any major mistakes. He hasn't done anything wrong. I mean, we're talking that first stint, he was in 4th place, and we thought that he was the guy that was just kind of riding around. Turns out the riding around solution was the best solution. And, you know, it eventually turns out, you know, probably learned a couple things in that first stint or two. And that's why he's leading this race by such a margin, is that he's able to convert that here at the end of the race.
You're looking on screen right now as Spencer Todd gets taken out by Robert Gambill, going out of turn 4 and into turn 5. Gamble clipping the grass, coming back on, not in control of his car, as I believe Ozzie Milwane has had an issue in the 113. It might have been a small off because he's still going, but Milwane, we'll take a look at the replay here.
Oh, he got hit by Andy Spicer.
And that's, again, we've been talking about it all night long. Drivers, you see those brake rotors glowing red, and you're right. Yep, Spicer just helps him around. And that's the class leader right there that he just spun around. And for Spicer, this is the second time in this race, because remember, he had gotten into Joseph Homan to take over the 6th position, and now spinning a class leader. Granted, Harley is still quite a ways back, did not lose position. But, I mean, that's got to be infuriating if you're the class leader.
That's the big no-no. That's the number one no-no that you do, is if you're in a different class, to take out the class leader. And he accidentally did it there.
We are past the 2-hour, 25-minute mark. Joey Haynes has now just lapped 4th place Robert Covey, heading through the bus stop. And as we were just talking about, Joey Haynes has not put a foot wrong all night long. And this will certainly be the best start he could have asked for the American Sportsman Series. Here he comes to the line. Joey Haynes, the overall winner here for the Daytona 2.4, and starts the major series off about as well as you could start it. Looking now, Ozzie Milwane will be the next class leader to cross the line. We were just talking about him getting spun. That's not for position behind him. But Milwane is the one that has been, of the class leaders, and talking about throughout the race, he has been the one that has been under the most duress all night long, and has shown in flying colors, shown he's up to the task.
He's very thankful that this counter is on 0 and there's no more time left, and he can just come away with the win. He can breathe again. He's got this in the bag. He's just got to make it around the corner here.
And that right there, as he comes through NASCAR 3 and 4, was really his last hurdle, as now coming out of NASCAR 4, turn 12, Ozzie Milwane wins the season opening race in the GT3 class.
Oh, what is going on here?
Oh, yeah, there's a big wreck in the back there. We will take a look at that, but that's as Ethan Oswowski is coming across the line. He will win pretty much an uncontested GTE class, and I believe he is the last driver to actually officially finish this race. So that might have been guys who had already finished the race. Try to see.
I saw Nathan Medina. He was slow out of NASCAR 1, and he's been weaving all the way down 3 and 4.
And
Uh,
Medina was done with his race. Here's the 6. There's Medina. He is done with his race. He's on the outside line here. Hopefully it doesn't happen behind the pylon. It doesn't. And yep, there he is. That's run into by Rob Courtney at the end of this race. And I'm not sure if Courtney had finished the race yet, so Courtney might have been just trying to finish.
yeah, I don't think either of them finished yet. Because Medina was behind Ozzy.
Could Medina have been out of gas? Because here they come. We're still watching this replay here. I think Medina might have been out of gas. Because here he is getting a push now from Courtney.
I don't know if it's a very friendly push, but yeah, that's very interesting.
I do believe they are the same team. Very similar paint schemes for those cars. And now here comes the 314. I think possibly also trying to lend some assistance. Yep, and there's your teammate move of the race right there. And then, yep, there it is. Just end it. Just end it all right there. As I believe we will try now, as we go back to live pictures here. Boy, it has been one heck of a race here tonight, and we will now be joined by the overall race winner. That is Joey Haynes. Joey, one heck of a night. You hardly put a foot wrong all race long.
Thank you so much. That was quite the race.
You had gotten the lead coming out of the first pit stop after the mistake by Michael Broomhead. What was your thoughts as you were seeing Broomhead? Because you were the one that came out while he was in the pit wall. What were your thoughts seeing the guy who had the fastest car for the first stint of the race in the wall?
I didn't even know what to think, to be honest with you. I came around out of the pits there, and I just saw his car damaged and kind of stuck into the wall, and I was like, okay, well, this is interesting.
It certainly was. And we were talking up here in the booth about how grueling a long race like this can be, and just how draining this race can be, especially when you're in a higher class car where you're focusing on getting around people for so much of the race. How draining was it for you being in the lead, being as fast as you were, just trying to stay out of mistakes?
I mean, I think after a while, you just kind of get into that rhythm, that groove, and you're really just clicking laps off repeatedly, just trying to hit your marks, make sure you're always hitting that same braking point and keeping track of where the tires are at. And then just being patient with the traffic. Like you can't rush the GTE and the GT3 guys through Daytona or really any track on iRacing. At the end of the day, you just have to really respect each other and give each other room.
Yeah, certainly. And you had the best start to this season that you possibly could have. In just over a month's time, we stay here at Daytona in the 1987 Cup cars. What are your thoughts going into what is going to be another long and difficult race?
I think as long as we have everyone here at Evolve Sim Sport working away before the next race, then we're not going to have any issues. Everyone on the team did a fantastic job. Steve Driscoll put together probably the best LMP2 setup I could have possibly imagined. The car was on rails all race long, and I couldn't have asked for anything better. So I'm looking forward to the 500 in those challenging to drive 87 cars.
They certainly are challenging. And anyone you want to thank before we let you go and celebrate your victory?
I mean, of course, I want to thank my whole team, Andrew Waring and Evolve Sim Sports, Steve Driscoll, but of course, we got to thank our sponsors too, Apex 2 VR, and we've got Innovative on there as well. But really just my family, and of course you guys for broadcasting this race. It's always nice to have people watching and seeing what's going on here and trying to grow the sport.
Yeah, and certainly you guys put on one heck of a show to help with that here tonight. Your overall race winner, Joey Haynes, congratulations, bud.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
So I believe we are going to go now to, I believe we're going to do the podium. I believe we're doing the podium for the LMPs and all of the race winners. But right now, I want to get to the overall class winners here first, if that is what we are doing. So right now, we are going to go to a man whose name I butchered pretty much the entire night. Ethan, please, please, please tell me how to say your last name.
Osofsky.
Osofsky. So yes, I completely butchered your name all race long. I do apologize for that.
That's all right. Most people do.
So you had pretty much an uneventful race here tonight. What was going through your head as you were just running that Porsche into the ground and running away from everybody else?
In terms of the race, not much, but I had a sore foot from braking too much, and my feet were getting pretty sore. So that's what I was thinking about most of the time.
Um, just how difficult was it to try to keep your focus again? You're saying you with the sore foot. How difficult is it once you get late into the race? You haven't had that. You haven't had the competition behind you to try to keep you fresh. You were pretty much 30 seconds ahead for the latter part of the race. What keeps you fresh in that spot?
I don't know. I guess the coming on the traffic and stuff, making sure you don't make any contact and stuff. I mean, I wasn't really pushing it at all. I was kind of just cruising.
And we see it with how smooth you were running all race long. Going into February 21st, looking ahead, the Daytona 500 in the 1987 Chevy and Ford. What are your thoughts going into another very difficult, another very long race here at Daytona?
Well, I've heard that those cars are pretty tricky to drive, but I haven't driven much ovals myself, so it's going to be quite a lot of practice for me.
It's going to be quite a lot of practice for everyone. Unfortunately, you have a little bit more than a month. Going so that's next week taken care of. Anyone you want to thank here tonight before we let you go and celebrate your class win?
I want to thank my team with the great work, the great practice. Everybody was focused, and we were getting good setups. I want to thank my family and just everybody. I want to thank the other drivers for keeping it clean and not make my race too hard either.
All right, so there is your GTE class winner, Ethan Osofsky.
Yep.
All right, so Ethan Osofsky, there he is, your class winner for the GTEs, bud. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so there is your second class winner. Your third class winner coming in right now, Austin Milwane. Austin, you had one heck of a run all throughout the race with Vince Harley. He had made a mistake that got you into the race lead. What were you thinking once you had seen his mistake and got into that position that you thought you could win?
Yeah, we got a little lucky there. As soon as I saw that, I just put my head down. I knew my tires were shot. So from then on, I just put my head down, hit my marks, and made it to the finish line.
Now, this was the first chance we have had an opportunity to broadcast a multi-class race, and with how new the Lamborghini Huracan and the BMWs were to drive, how was the Lamborghini out there, especially on that longer run where the tires were starting to go away?
It was good at the start. At the end there, yeah, it was a little shaky. I fell off probably 3 seconds a lap, as you could tell. The lap traffic was coming up on me there. We made the decision to not take tires and just a little splash of fuel, and I think it was the right decision. If I took tires, I probably wouldn't have won. So, yeah, we made the right decision there.
Yeah, it certainly looked like you did. And we stay in Daytona Beach, Florida in a little bit more than a month and a half's time. Sorry, a little bit more than a month's time for the Daytona 500 in the 1987 stock cars. What are your thoughts going into what is going to be another physically demanding long race?
It should be interesting. A lot of these guys are oval guys. I don't have too much experience on the ovals myself, so we're going to be doing lots of testing. Yeah, like I said, I don't have too much oval experience. So even in the 87s, that's going to be tough. It's going to be a handle.
Yeah, it certainly is, especially in those cars. Anyone you want to thank before we let you go and celebrate your class win?
Yeah, just all the guys back at Evolve. I had a lot of support from Andrew Waring, Driscoll, all the boys. We got Direct Innovations on the side of the car this year, and Apex V2R. Just like to thank those guys.
All right, so there is your GT3 class winner, Austin Milwain. Sir, congratulations.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so there is your your three class winners. And Nate, I'll tell you what, man, we had one heck of a night. We've been waiting for this for so long. We've known that we were going to be broadcasting this series for a couple months now, and just waiting and waiting and waiting for the day to finally come where we were going to broadcast these guys and show what these guys can do. And it's been a joy the entire night through.
It definitely lived up to the hype. We saw plenty of actions throughout all three classes all night long. Some drama. It really, honestly, it had everything that you would want out of a multi-class race. You had the passing, you had the strategies, you had the traffic with all the different classes and cars. It was incredible to watch it. It was incredible to call it. And honestly, it was awesome to be here with you, Frank.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you here, and I believe might bring you back into the booth next Sunday, because I believe I'm going to be broadcasting some of the Rolex 24, the iRacing Rolex 24 for the ESPN team that's going to be taking part. So we might bring you in for a little while for that. But we will go to the race results now. First, for the LMP class here, Joey Haynes, we heard from him, the race winner here tonight. Jeff Cardamone in second position. Gregory Hectus in third. Robert Covey coming home in fourth. By the way, the podium finishers, the only ones to finish on the lead lap for the LMPs. Michael Broomhead is going to be a night of what could have been for him, finishing fifth. Sean Duhamel coming home in sixth. Seventh place going to Andy Spicer. Eighth going to Joseph Homan. Casey Sawtek coming home in ninth. 10th place going to Jason McSparron. John Navarra in 11th. And Rob Courtney coming home in the 12th position. Nate, you want to wrap up the GTE class for us?
I'll do my best if I can pronounce the first last name. Ethan Whiskey came home.
Osaski, there we go.
Man, I was close. Not really. He came home the winner in the GTE class. Richard McClure, he came home second place. Justin Garrick, he finished off the podium, overtaking Spencer Todd, who was in that position most of the day. He ended up in fourth place. Maurice Gamillion, he came home in the fifth position. Chris Sherburne, he came home in sixth. Robert Deloach, he finished tonight in seventh. Chris Branson was one of the guys that we talked about, had a very clean race. He came home in the eighth position. Dan Garber in the ninth place, and Brett Tosin rounding out the top 10. Matt Gilder, he came home in 11th place. And Michael Lane had a night to forget. He came home in the 12th position.
Yeah, he certainly did. And that podium was going to be Porsche, Corvette, Ferrari. It turns out to be Porsche, Corvette, Porsche with that incident with Spencer Todd in the latter stages of the race. For the GT3 class, Austin Milwane comes away with the win. Vince Harley finishing in second. Mark Herzog finishing in third. Those guys, the only three to finish on the lead lap there. Brian Halleck coming home in fourth. Robert Gamble in fifth. David Garargo Jr. coming home in sixth. Stephen Paulison in seventh. Gustavo Cianferrani, that was it. I had it right earlier. In eighth. Gerard Gilbert in ninth. Nathan Medina in 10th. Greg McEnany in 11th. And Jason Guerrara coming home in last place in the GT3 class. For those of you who want to see how they finished overall, this is how they finished overall. Osowski coming home in the 12th position overall, beating out Rob Courtney, which was the last LMP2. Coming through pretty much self-explanatory from there. The guys in the same class all finishing in order except for Matt Gelder and Michael Lane, who both had absolutely miserable evenings here at Daytona. So we thank you all so much for being a part of this opening race here for the Majors Series, the American Sportsman region of the Major Series 2021 season. Remind you again that coming up on February 21st is going to be the second round of this season in the 1987 stock cars at Daytona. It'll be a full-length Daytona 500 for all of you to enjoy here on ESPN. So for my broadcast partner, Nate Siefker, I am Frank Marchese. Be sure to like the stream either on YouTube or on Facebook. Be sure to follow us on Facebook. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube if you want to see more of what we broadcast here on ESPN. We thank you so much for making us a part of your evening, and we will see you all on the 21st of February here from Daytona.